One of my community partners is dying to have me set up a podcast called Building and Production.
It was a lot of fun to do. Hello, and welcome to Jason Cavness Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is MH Lines. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, first question. So, we're going to get into everything you do, a little bit, right? You're doing a lot, have been doing a lot. But how do you take care of yourself, right? Like both physically, mentally, or whatever your term is, like taking care of yourself. How do you do that?
I don't know that I do.
Yeah, if I ask that question, I say I kind of suck at that.
Yeah, I am. I try and find things I enjoy doing and like spend time doing it. I used to say that I would like chill when I needed it, but I found all summer it was hard to get off the couch, and I think that's called depression, not taking care of yourself. So, yeah, being like just spending time in the things that interest me mentally, I think is probably the best way.
Um, so I think on Friday it was International Women's Day, and this month the U.S. is like Women's History Month. Can you talk about those two things, like what they mean to you, and like why like people should support those kind of things?
Well, so I'll give you a personal story first. My mother was actually a feminist. So she was one of the very first women at a big national chain of like a retailer, like old department stores. She was the very first woman at that place that was hired in management, not just a shop girl. And so growing up, I heard her tell all these horrible stories about bias and the way things work and having to go in and demand equal salary. And I never touched it. I never faced it. I never had any of those challenges until I was laid off. I was pregnant. And for the very first time, I went through 9 job interviews, very pregnant, to be fair. And it just never even crossed my mind that I should hide my pregnancy or that people wouldn't want to work with someone who had 1 kid already and is pregnant with her second. And it was the most demoralizing experience. And so the when I went through it, I apologized to my mom for calling her crazy and whining about like that feminism still had progress to make. But then I really realized and got into the statistics about how bad it is, how bad the glass ceiling is in corporations. Leslie Feinzig talks about the best way to get women into positions of power is going to be doing it through them building companies. Because if we wait and do it through the Fortune 500 promoting them, it's going to take 200 years.
Yeah, yeah, because I think I could be wrong, but I think the Equal Pay Act at the federal level was actually passed like 1963, 1964. So the law exists, right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it's not being translated. And of course, the law says, everything has to be equal based on certain criteria, And then I think, a lot of people get it kind of mixed up, right? Like I had a friend, she complained more time. I don't understand it, right? I'm an HR business partner, and our friend in Seattle gets paid more than me. And I was, well, let's break it down. He works at Amazon. He's in Seattle. You work for a nonprofit in a town in Arkansas, 50,000 people, right? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people get those things confused, right? I think a lot of times when people are saying gender pay is not good or, unequal, they're not really comparing apples to apples, right?
Yeah, I actually was moved out here by a big industrial heavy manufacturer, and I hope no one that was my peer at that company is listening, because I was paid a ton more than the other guys in my same jobs. So I think they're especially the lower jobs. I think the pay is getting closer. I think some of it is women not demanding what they're worth and
Yeah.
men demanding it, negotiating better and feeling empowered to negotiate better. But I think the big disparity in women's income, if you just look at national averages, is from women not getting into those upper echelons of leadership.
Yeah. I think that's true. Like you said, like two people, man and a female, get the job. The guy stats so 95%, hey, I deserve more. Unfortunately, female's gonna be like, feel, oh my God, I have a job. Let me keep my mouth shut. And then the guy gets a raise, and of course that expands itself. They know the problem too is like, pose like me and you get hired for a job, right? Both doing the same thing. I'll go say, hey boss, I've been to work on time every day for 6 months. Give me a raise, right?
Yeah.
Both are like, what the fuck? You've been what are you doing, right? And
Use
what,
Poe to do that.
yeah. And what you've actually closed like a $50 million deal, increase metrics, increase KPI, and people will tell you, go ask for a raise. Oh no, I'm just going to do my job right.
Yeah, they're going to recognize me.
Yeah. And they're not going to recognize you. You got to be to your own home, so to speak, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember Satya Nadella being at the Grace Hopper celebration a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Where his initial advice was to tell women just to show up and do a good job and they'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. It's not good advice.
but you know what? He called it back. We'll give him credit. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people who would have never called it back. Being a woman in a venture-backed startup, I follow a lot of the thought leaders. And Paul Graham, who's one of the founders of Y Combinator in Silicon Valley, still has a blog up that says the great thing about being in a startup is that you don't have to follow the laws that would be considered discrimination. For instance,
Yeah.
you can discriminate against having a co-founder who's a woman who's pregnant with children because no one would want to work with those people normally.
Yeah.
But as a startup founder, you can.
Yes, based on numbers.
Still up there.
Yeah.
It's still posted, not even apologetic about it.
Yeah. So kind of still on the subject. There was an article I saw maybe a week ago where it said like, I can't remember the numbers, but like funding from VCs to like non-white people dropped from like, I'll make this number up, from like 25 billion to like $25 million. Like it was like crazy decrease. I have to imagine same for females, right? And someone posted like, rich people, when are you gonna start doing better, right? But the thing is, they haven't been doing better, right? The numbers always been skewed to a certain demographic, And of course, there's these things out there like they focus on, lack of a better term, non-white guys funding, right? But there's always like, I don't know if they really hit it off,
Yeah, it's so Austin Guyette from Voyager and I have had this debate before, and I feel like there is intrinsic bias in the process, right? Like the whole machine's broken. And if you're an early stage investor, especially if you're a woman, you know how much harder the system is for a woman to make it through. And Austin's like, that's stupid. Women outperform. Like we should ignore all that. But if I were an investor and I know it's going to be twice as hard for a woman, she would have to have a higher bar than a man to move forward with me because I know it's going to be harder than her and she's going to be held to a higher bar to get to the next round of funding.
And also those things out there, which I don't agree with, where they say, they'll invest in the failed founder versus a new founder, right? I'm like, this guy failed once. He proves he's going to fail. Why invest in this person again, right?
Oh my God. Because if you're crazy enough to go back after it and like I think you have to be introspective about why you failed for that to be true. But like, oh gosh, I was so like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and like naive when I went through my first startup.
We all.
we were competing against Salesforce at my first startup and we were kicking their ass. And so I felt like everything else should come easy after that. But
yeah,
hard.
Another pet peeve of mine too, like you'll see on these investment networks, I mean websites and stuff, they're like, we believe in diverse investing, blase, blase. And then in the small print, we prefer an introduction. Like, help make it make sense, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I would argue I didn't know any. And I had moved from Atlanta and I was working literally at a heavy industrial. And I showed up to open office hours and met people. And that's how I got there. That's how I met you, right? Like so like I just showed up, even though it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And in Seattle, we don't like to do that ever. And there are ways to meet people and it doesn't take much for someone to give you an introduction.
Yeah. And also like I'm raising my own fund right now. And I'm surprised that people have been answering my cold emails, right? It's way higher than I thought it would be, right? And maybe it's because they go to my LinkedIn profile, see I'm a white guy, retired Army officer, that probably helps out some, I'm like kind of out there, so to speak, but I've gotten more replies on cold emails than I thought I would, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah. When I put effort into it, right? When it's a cold email and it's focused,
Oh yeah,
I feel like I have probably like a 20-30% success rate.
That's pretty high though.
But when I just kind of copy and paste and send them out there, it's just a waste of time.
But it's so easy to do that, right?
I know.
I mean, there's like literally 1,000 investors out there. I mean, you could like, of course you got to like break it down. Like for me, I'm B2B pre-seed. It'd be done for me to reach out to a B round investing consumer, right? So you can't do that, right? You can't do this great thing, but like even I think I have 200 investors I want to reach out to, right? And so like every once in a while, like I send like an update, like be like lazy post, but then I got, man, like of course no one responds. But then when you take the time to like tailor, right? But like 200, even though it takes 10 seconds to tailor, it's 200 times 10 seconds, time this, time that, right? It's like, it's just a time suck.
It's such a time suck. I was on stage with an AI technology in HubSpot. It was their unicorn pitch competition at Inbound last fall. And I just saw today that the technology that won, it's a cold email where they automatically update videos to look like your mouth saying it to your cold email script. So it looks like you took the time to like record the video for them. It's really cool. I do wonder how long it's going to last. If everyone can do that, how much value that'll be at some point.
Yeah. And somebody posted on LinkedIn the other day. It was like a meme. It was like a Joey from a friend when he has the look like, oh my God, something went wrong. The look everyone gets when they realize all the emails say hi, first name.
Oh man. Well, that's what my product solves, right? Like that's why we're here. We can catch that before you send it out, unless you're sending it out manually, then we
Mhm.
can't help stupid.
Yeah, 'cause I've definitely done that before. Like crap.
Yeah. Totally. Like copied and pasted the
Yeah.
last person's first name.
Yeah.
I did that with a candidate when I was recruiting a
Mhm.
couple years ago, and I caught it immediately.
Yeah.
And I said, "Whoops, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I was manually cutting and pasted
Yeah.
and let the guy's name." The guy was like, "Well, clearly you don't want me as an employee." And I was like, "Clearly I don't now."
Clearly I don't. F you.
Yeah, I did until you acted like a jerk about it. But all right, startup's not the place for you, buddy.
No, no, no. So are you from Seattle?
I'm not. I'm from Florida.
From
I know we're
Florida?
not supposed to
Flo-
admit that.
Florida, then Atlanta, and up here. How long you been up here?
Actually, Florida, and then my first job was at MTV.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I moved to New York and then was not cool enough to work at MTV at all, and moved to Washington, DC, and then Atlanta, and then here.
You probably don't know this, but man, who was the person decided to take MTV from music to like documentaries and like realism? Like,
It was when I was there. I should not admit that. So investors, I'm actually just 27. I'm still investable, but in fact, I was at MTV during that era. It was like pop-up video. I was casting for the very first spring break reality show, Undercover. Um, and they had realized, and everyone was talking about it, how the worst show had better ratings than the best video. End of an era.
yeah. And I guess everyone just uses YouTube to watch videos, I guess.
Yeah, I do all the time. Like,
Yeah.
it's so much fun to sit and watch videos on YouTube now. Like, I have that on in the background the way we used to with MTV.
Yeah. Is MTV even around? Like, I can't think if I have like all the channels, streaming stuff. I don't think MTV is on any of them.
If you wanna watch teen pregnant moms,
That's the place to go to.
ugh, awful. Yeah, like, the content has just gotten baser and baser,
Has it?
but whatever. Like, pop-up video was so smart.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
I had such a crush on the producer too. He was really smart.
Mhm. Um, so how long were you in New York City?
Oh gosh, not even 2 years.
Number 2 years.
Yeah, 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 super fast.
That's good. Everybody had a good time there.
Oh, yeah. I always thought I'd live there again, and now that I've got kids and live in Seattle,
That's actually my bucket list. I want to live in New York City like for 6 months.
you totally have to.
I want,
It's a great place to live. Highly recommend it.
so talk about you rebranding your company a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
Think about the process, like why rebrand? Because I mean, it's not easy to go from do a rebrand, right?
Yeah.
Why even do it, right?
Well, I thought I was very smart when I created the company name. I looked up on the trademark databases and saw that automaton was not trademarked. It was our original name. And went about raising money and building our first product. And then we went to trademark our brand name and realized that the reason it wasn't trademarked for anyone is because it's untrademarkable. And like at around the same time, 3 or 4 new companies formed that were in very related markets. Um, that in addition to the fact that investors could never pronounce it. So we'd have these investor meetings and they'd be like, "So what is autumn? What does your company do?" And you could tell they were really uncomfortable saying it. And I was like, they're never going to invest in something they can't say. So
I mean, isn't a story? I don't know if it's true or not. Must be. 'Cause I heard a lot where um, Amazon was called something else before, but everyone called it cavador, like a dead body or something like that. You're like
Cadaver. Yeah.
cadaver. Yeah, so you're like, I gotta change this name. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that too. I don't know if it's true or not.
yeah. So, what does it mean to you? I found somewhere you said play to win, not just to survive. What does that mean?
So I did my MBA here at UW at the Foster School of Business. I'm very proud of it. I did my undergrad at FSU, and I'm super proud of that as well. Florida State University, very different schools. And they put us through this incredible leadership training program. And one of them was kind of an innovation game to get you thinking about what your knee-jerk reactions are to situations. And I found that I mean, let's be honest, I've created a testing and monitoring product. So it's not exactly the sexiest pushing boundaries product out there ever. I found that I have an inclination to analyze things and be risk adverse. And for me, especially with a startup, it's all about playing to win, right? So I mentioned I went to FSU. I went to FSU during the Bobby Bowden era, and we had this intense rivalry between Steve Spurrier and Bobby Bowden. And they always talked about the difference between the two was that Bobby Bowden played not to lose, and Steve Spurrier played to win. And when you're in a winner take all software market in a $50 billion market category, like play to win, like that's it.
So, how do you make sure you don't overanalyze? In my experience, people who say they're analyzers or logical people, they like tend to like go overboard. How you know when to cut the line, so to speak?
Um, well, I don't know. I have always, the personality profile stuff like the DISC and Myers-Briggs. I've always been one of those people where I kind of analyze quickly, and so or gather data and analyze quickly. So I think that might be something like watching my husband overanalyze something. It's a painful 3-day process. I can overanalyze it for like 2 days. But when I analyze it, I'll find the weaknesses and I'll play against the weaknesses naturally instead of playing to the strengths. And so for me, it's not about I'm an over analyzer. It's more about I've analyzed it. I've realized where the risks are and where the possibilities are, and then I would focus on the risks instead of the possibilities.
So, what is spam? Is there like a legal definition for spam somewhere, or it's like spam kind of, for lack of a better term, it's spam kind of like art or porn, where everyone knows what it is when they see it, right?
No, there's an act. There's a CAN-SPAM Act
Okay.
that Congress has passed, which is totally not enforced anywhere. I think people are allowed to file lawsuits against it that get thrown out as being frivolous, is my understanding. It's a total waste of time. But what spam matters now, and especially for like HR and recruiting professionals, is Google and Yahoo have defined spam. And spam is a user marking an email as spam.
Okay.
And so if and it's not 0.03, it's 0.03%.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah, of emails get marked as spam starting June 1st.
You know, the naughty boy, good naughty girl list.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get delivered to any Gmail inboxes.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's big.
that's fucking tough.
Yeah.
But I do think some people like take it to extreme, right? Like this might be a bad example. One time I had a sales navigator on LinkedIn, right? And there's first a person I was connected with. I sent him an email about something I was doing, right? He replied, "I know we're connected on LinkedIn, but I did not give you permission to send me a message." I didn't. I told myself, "Are you kidding me, right? Like we're connected. I still have to get permission from you? What?" Yeah, I just okay, whatever. And I said we're not connected. No, I just
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's like the Taylor Swift song, like if you say it in the street, it's a knockout. If you say
yeah,
it in a tweet, it's a cop out.
yeah, yeah,
You can tell my
definitely,
kids are very into Taylor Swift right
yeah.
now. Like that's so pathetic. You would never say that to someone's face,
No.
right? Like just be polite. I am from the South. That's my politeness thing,
Yeah.
like is definitely a Southern tendency.
Yeah, it's just crazy, right? Like, I guess like I get emails like all the time from people I don't know unsolicited. You know, I just delete it, just
Yeah.
and they'll like even they go 4 or 5 times. I keep deleting it. And then sometimes, hey guy, so I might say once in a while, hey guy, I'm not your customer, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I always get emails or LinkedIn or something from like people in Bangladesh, right? I don't know why it's Bangladesh. We want to do this for your podcast. We want to increase your sales. Like, You know, I've never emailed, but I always say I would never ever get anything from Bangladesh, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would totally hire people who came through references,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, like the
Very
cold
cold.
email. Well, and they always get my name wrong, like every single time. And so they're like, "Hey, we can cold email people for you."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "You just got my name wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you cold email people for me when you can't even get my name right."
So on TikTok, they do TikTok ads. There's an ad on there. The sales company, they're bragging about they sent out 10,000 cold emails and closed 682 of them. I'm thinking like 682 or 10,000. That's a fucking horrible result, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if your cold emails aren't personalized, that took you 4 seconds.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, th
I'm just thinking if they did it wrong, those 10,000 minus 682, that 9,500 that they either like annoyed him or got it wrong or
yeah, I mean, it's the prisoner's dilemma, right? Like, there's all of the negative consequences of it. Like, are you more focused on saving yourself? Or are you more focused on making the entire world look worse
yeah,
because you're spamming the snot out of people?
that's true.
Like, yeah, we've tried it.
Mhm,
Like, every single investor we actually have turned down more investment dollars than we've
mhm.
taken. And those people were like, "No, hell no, you're gonna be hiring 10 SDRs and cold emailing the snot out of people." And I'm
Yeah,
like, I can't bring myself to do it."
yeah.
Like, I my new CRO, Steven, was like, "Hey, you know what? This is hard enough. We totally don't have to lose all respect for ourselves
Mhm.
in addition to this
Yeah,
being hard."
yeah. And then, of course, like, I'll get email from people, um, "Jason, I know you're doing great things at Cavness HR and your HR platform. At so and so HR, we can do this for you." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, I get those all the time, right?
Oh my god. You're
Yeah,
like, "Thanks for selling me my product.
yeah,
I really appreciate it."
yeah. I don't realize, like, that's not their fault. They're probably just, like, like, copy pasting stuff, and
Yeah.
probably buying a list from someone. Speaking of that, is I always say, like, buying a list is like, no matter what you do, never buy a list. But I always get emails once a day. "You want a list for the chief of fire departments in South Texas," or some insane stuff like that, like all the realtor clerks,
All right. So I will admit, if anyone's from my ESP out there listening as well, please ignore this because I know it's against the terms and conditions, but my email service provider. Um, I think buying lists for events that you're attending is a good way. Like, I don't know where they get these lists and how they know that people are attending these trade shows, but that one's one that I will totally do. I think it's people who probably posted and said they were attending an event or something like that. Those really work. I'm also inviting people to a party or something like that where it's really easy to get their attention. But yeah, the rest of it, I don't think it's at all.
So any advice to people to stay off the spam naughty list?
Well, obviously, can I pitch? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stack Moxie, our free product, will monitor Google's postmaster tools for you and let you know if you are having unsubscribe rates that could put you at risk. So monitor those rates and know, and again, our product's free for that monitoring, but if you monitor them and then you can cut off the activity where people are reporting you as spam, or unsubscribing.
So what happened to you to make you want to solve this problem?
I actually was a consultant at Microsoft. So it wasn't just the spam rate problem. It was kind of any of the things that are hard to monitor and manage in today's modern revenue, like customer success, sales, even websites, like they're all dependent on each other to make a business result, right? Like the goal isn't to get more MQLs. Like the CEO of the company isn't going to Wall Street and saying, "We got lots of marketing qualified leads." The goal is to get sales. And so there are all these different independent teams working up and down that process. And I was helping the team at Microsoft Office when they were doing that, when they were launching Office 365. And even with that exceptional a team, with all of their tools and all of their budget, things broke all the time and no one knew about it. And so it was then that I realized I needed something to monitor that process explicitly. Um, and then went on to a couple other companies and realized it was something fairly ubiquitous.
So do you have like a lack of a better term, a perfect customer that you want to target?
Yeah, our ICP is a fast-growing business-to-business company, or a complex enterprise that's selling business to business. And every single one of those has 7 or 8% of their prospects going into the toilet, and we can find them and return them and save them a lot of time and headaches.
And what's your business model? How you make money?
I learned that there's an actual term for what we do. So we're a usage-based subscription tiers, SaaS
Okay.
business model. So when someone's monitoring, so for instance, one of our customers who I'm not allowed to name them as a customer, but one of the 10
As
largest
long as they keep paying you, that's all that
yes,
matters, right?
exactly. One of the 10 largest customers in Europe, companies in Europe, um, they use us for monitoring their GDPR privacy compliance and their integrations, the availability of their tools and their marketing tech stack. And so, for instance, they were just monitoring that integration once a day, and it went down first thing in the morning. So it was 10 hours until our monitor ran, and they found out that their stuff was down. And so our product, we charge based on how frequently someone's monitoring their systems.
And does your product have any to play anything with cybersecurity?
Yeah. Well, we support some of the aspects of cybersecurity, a lot of data privacy kind of sides of it. If you think about AI, are you pushing PII into a third-party LLM, for example? So it's how the data's flowing. Our tool tends to monitor that and check it. There's lots of cool data security tools that can do pen testing and things, but like is it okay to say dumbass? Like the
Yeah.
dumbass ways
Cuss as
people
much as you want. Cuss, drink bourbon, doesn't know.
good bourbon too. The dumbass ways that people uh share PII when they're not supposed to, we can help them be like, "Hey, did you mean to create an API that's pushing your customers?"
No, I'm just being a dumbass.
We're the anti-dumbass technology, I guess. It's behavioral driven testing, so like we can test for dumbass behavior.
Nice. So I could be wrong with this too, but I think GDPR started in Europe like 4 or 5 years ago, and everyone thought it was going to come here like immediately. But did it ever come over here?
California
Okay, California.
has some stringent requirements, and
Is
then
that on the European level though?
no,
Okay.
yeah, Germany's on a whole
Because
nother
everyone thought,
level.
oh man, we got to start doing what they're doing now. It'd be here pretty soon, and I don't think it ever came here, did it?
Yeah, and then New Jersey is doing some of it. They just released that, so the different states are doing it differently.
Okay.
I think Florida's got some pretty, like, and I think they have some pretty nasty, like draconian
Yeah.
teeth in it, where people will make some money off of litigating it.
Okay. I mean, it's actually a good thing, right? Of course, it's annoyance, it might be too far, but at the end of the day, if you protect people's security and privacy, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just no one was responsible to or accountable to
Mhm.
anyone. And so I like it that people have to be accountable to the people whose data they have.
So, pen test, what is that?
What's a pen test?
Yes.
It's a penetration test. And that sounds very dirty, but it's seeing if someone can make it through your outside security systems and making it into your system.
So, of course, you're a small business. Can't afford like a big cybersecurity company to pen test right. Of course, you don't want to do it yourself. And I know just like anything else I learned, like if you Google marketing business, 10,000 marketing business come up, 10,000 pen testing business probably come up.
Yeah.
How should a small business pick someone to do this for them?
Okay. So there are two levels here, right? And I think it depends on your company. So, like for an HR platform where you really do have important information about your customers, I think a pen test is more important than like our platform is a monitoring database where we have pass fails in it. So, like if someone got into our database, they'd be able to see that our customers had a bunch of tests and they were passes or fails. Like they can't do anything with it, they can't hurt anyone. And then we've got really strong encryption on the integrations where they could go use our API to go pull information in theory. So for us, the pen test is a little less valuable And I think it depends on how secure your information is. So for us, it's a formality. We want good information. We don't want anything exposed because it's a headache. But if you're in healthcare, right? Like it's a big deal, and you should care about your customers and you should care about their private data.
Wasn't I think I want to say is, I think it was a big medical company. Didn't they just have the hack recently?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, because like 80% of medical records are out in the open, so to speak, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I have to imagine some of those that's like regular medical. It has to be something like, where you go to like a psychiatrist and tell you all your stuff. Like there's a TV show, man, I think it was Lifetime Network that my wife watched at the time, where this teenage girl, like, I don't want to record my mess like this on your computer. Oh, no worry, it's fine. No one sees it. And like a week later, someone stole a computer and the girl like freaked out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I bet that's to happen too, right? This probably happened this time too. Like somebody's like personal therapeutic, what do you want to call it?
Yeah, and then they can be, like, blackmailed because it all goes on the black market. It's awful.
The dark web
Yeah.
stuff.
I love Lifetime too.
Yeah.
Another thing I shouldn't admit to VCs because they can tell how old I am.
Yeah, my wife has that on speed dial or one touch button or whatever.
That's so cool.
And one thing that's crazy too, like suppose like there's something out there today, right? And like, like suppose there's Tom Jones out there, right? He's a high school student, he's done something stupid. But then 20 years from now, he's like a, US senator or something like a CEO that comes back, hey, I got this, and you like, you like did drugs or like, did something bad, like it's always out there, of course, like evergreen in the bad way.
Weren't we so lucky?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, like gosh, someone was posting, it's like, oh, it was a comedian. He's like, all of like the dumb shit I did was over by the time like MySpace came out.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Oh my goodness.
Not all of the dumb shit I did was over by the time Facebook came out, but there's not much reported.
I could not imagine the stuff I did back in the day, right?
Oh my gosh. I can. Yeah.
But now there's like out there doing dumb shit, recording themselves. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I worry for my kids for sure.
Yeah, there's no privacy no more. Everything's out there.
Yeah. I mean, as a mom, I really appreciate it because I can snoop
Mhm.
and I'm just a terrible snoop and I'm really good at internet stalking my children. But no, I don't love it for them.
Yeah. So here's one that most people don't know. Did you ever use Snapchat?
Not.
So on Snapchat, there's a way, if someone's public, they go automatically go to Snap Maps. And so you could click on their name and go to their map, see where they're at, unless they turn it off.
Yeah. My friends, teenagers, like all of a sudden kids start showing up at their house because of the Snap Maps. It's bananas.
Yeah.
Like I love it. We live in a like neighborhood that's super walkable and the kids walk to school. And so I think that would be fun for them to
Yeah.
just be able to wander around and find each other, but
Yeah.
have to get them a phone.
Yeah, definitely. So is there code outbound? What is that? Is this like, is that code emailing people?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, it's any way you could reach out to someone as opposed to, it's outbound and inbound are the marketing methodologies. So as you're selling your product, or we were talking about investors, right? So as you're reaching out to investors, cold outbound is them having no interest in you whatsoever, and you're finding a way to get a hold of them.
Okay. And like, suppose I send, Susan Jones a cold email. What takes that from cold to like warm, whatever? She replies or like, was it totally up to me?
Yeah. I mean, so at that point, she's responded to a cold email, and I would say that
I
that's
hope it's not, get the fuck out of here, Jason.
yeah, totally. Okay, so if we're talking about like how I would think about it from an analytics perspective,
yeah.
I would think that that remains a cold,
Okay.
like the lead source is cold outbound. And if you can make cold outbound work as a company and prove, especially to investors, that you can make cold outbound work, like that's magic, right? You can control your own destiny. There's a certain amount of money that you pump into people doing cold outbound, and then you can have people purchase through that funnel. I sell primarily to marketing and sales operations people who hate cold outbound because the bigger company you are, the more that they honor the canned spam and the Global Data Privacy Act. And so they're like, you're violating canned spam. Why would you ever reach out to me? So
I'll be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think HR people are fine because they're like, yeah, we're recruiters. We reach out to people all the time. It's totally fine. I think they come from a place of that's okay.
Mhm.
Marketing ops people do not.
No, different brain,
Yeah.
different brain. So talk about the points of your values of your company. Like did you, did those values just come to you in a, middle of the night? Did you like, have like a brainstorming session, the co-founders, employees, like talk about how those values came about and the points of those values to you.
Yeah. So we started out as a Techstars company, and I had co-founders that are not no longer with the business and not my current, who I consider to be like my partners and my co-founders. They are amazing people, and I love what they brought to the company, especially our original technology co-founder is just brilliant. He's an engineer at Spotify now. Um, and we all sat in a room and we went through a bunch of examples of other people's values, and we decided what those values should be. And then recently, when all of this AI stuff came up and our customers were like, hey, you're helping us manage our tech stack. When we introduce AI, can you help us manage that too? I brought on an incredible CTO co-founder who has just really been my partner, which is amazing. And we had challenges with one of the people on the team, and he's like, it all boils down to low ego. So we had a set of initial values, which were do the hard work to understand um, that diversity is a competitive advantage. And oh, I'm trying to remember what our original ones were. Anyways, some of those. And then when Sev joined, we recently added a new value of low ego, where it's not about being right. It's about like having pride in the process and learning, as opposed to being pride in knowing everything and being right.
Isn't it crazy how some people, they have to be right no matter what? It's
Yeah.
like, you can't be right all the time. And my thing is, like, even if you're right, sometimes you have to let the other person win the argument, so to speak.
Yeah. Unless you're a woman in a marriage, then he has to just be
Of
wrong.
course,
But
yeah. But that's what I was saying, right? That's what I was saying, of course.
no, well, gosh, one of our other co-founders is Steven, who is like this incredibly astute person. Um, And he was saying what went wrong in that example with a person where we were struggling with ego was that I'd put him in a position where he was uncomfortable and he felt like he was out on a limb. And some people can be really emotionally honest and say, I feel like I'm out on a limb. I want to do a good job, but I don't know if I'm doing a good job or if I can do a good job. And some people, when they get insecure, just double down on, I know what I'm doing, you better back off. And it's poker, by the way. When you watch people
Yeah.
play poker, they're the person who like doubles down at the like before you even see
I
the
know
flop.
I have the worst hand in the history of poker.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and buy the pot. Yeah. The person who does that mentally in a company is like low authority, low experience, and they can be exceptional. And we've never had anyone at our company who wasn't exceptional. But shut everyone else down out of insecurity. So it manifests as high ego. When it's my being a bad manager and putting someone in a position where they were out over their skis and not realizing it.
Yeah. So you had your original founding team. Some of them left. You have new founders now. Like, why give more people a founder title, and why have you have like 20,000 founders now? I mean, like actually only four, but like why so many founders?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
why give the title away? Like, I don't want to say freely, but like kind of freely.
So we're enterprise software, and 2023 was, or 2022 through 2023 was kind of a brutal year. We had been planning on raising a large seed round of funding. And so in my mind, rather than having investors put the money in for that really large seed round, that I would rather have um, leaders join the company where they could have access to equity that we would have been giving to investors instead. And so rather than raising a lot of cash, we brought in two really exceptional leaders and kind of promoted two internal exceptional leaders.
So these founders that you had along the way, you had like pre-existing relationship with them, like you recruited them. How
Yeah,
did that come
no,
about?
totally. One of them was my customer at Microsoft and is absolutely brilliant and is out there in the world still doing amazing things. So he joined us as our first salesperson, closed all of our first deals, and is exceptional. The other two, one of them I knew kind of through professional networks. Um, and again, amazing, not hardwired for startup life. And I didn't know the difference at the time. And she didn't either. Like she was all in. Um, and so she joined us and I would have never done it without her. Right. She was so great. And then, yeah, just cold recruited a technical co-founder out of Techstars who was again exceptional.
So you went to Techstars Seattle?
Uh-huh.
So let me ask you this. So Techstars, of course, recently pretty much closed down everything, right?
Yeah.
Are they still going to support you as a Techstars Seattle, or is that in this sense they're not here no more?
Yeah. So if you've seen my my LinkedIn or my Facebook, um, I was in the last class with Chris DeVore and Aviel Ginsberg, who um have, like what is it, the fourth the most successful class from an accelerator in history by value. Um, they are exceptional and really believed in us. And then have supported subsequent, they call them managing directors, so MDs of the Seattle office as well, and they've definitely supported me. And then incremental to that, the Techstars corporate team has reinvested every time we've raised money. They have supported us and given us access to everything. So if you read, Christopher actually wrote a blog post about why Seattle worked so well in the early days and how they changed the platform, which I thought was beautifully written. And I didn't think it was a slam to Techstars. It was a little bit, but 99% of it was just factual and really interesting. So I feel like I'm very much both supported by our managing directors, Devore and Aviel. Like anytime I ask for anything, they're lovely. Still consider them investors. And then Techstars corporate has been lovely. So yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, we're spoiled.
That's
Like
good to hear. And so you raised a pre-seed around a couple of years ago. Have you already done an A round also?
no.
Okay.
We raised a pre-seed round and Chris Devore and Aviel will tell you loudly if you ask them that they told me to raise a lot more money and I didn't. Mostly because I don't like fundraising. Not because I don't know. I thought having better deal terms would make it easier to raise around, and it wouldn't have at all. It
Yeah.
was again insecurity, probably some insecurity on my part. So we raised way too small a round to build a category defining platform and our pre-seed.
I mean, that's a fair right. On the one end, like if you like you want to get everything you want, you ask like we'll say $5 million, right? Then man, who's gonna give me $5 million? I don't have this done, have this done. And you try to be realistic. Well, if I just get $500,000, I can get to the next step.
Yeah,
But then in the next step is not enough to raise the next round.
fair.
And
Yeah.
then I think there's a tattoo that says the more money you raise, the more likely you'll raise another round.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that I've heard.
Yeah. 100%. Well, and the other axiom is fundraising is a moat, right? If you can raise a lot of money, that's a moat in and of itself. Look at WeWork, right? Like they were not a better product. They were not a better run company, but they had enough money to put everyone else out of business.
Good old WeWork.
Hey, I mean, it's important to learn from, right?
Yeah.
Like I took lessons from reading Bad Blood about Theranos,
Yeah.
right? Like she did some things that were ballsy and they worked for her and it's interesting. Like I don't fault her for having the fake low voice, right?
Yeah, that was, I mean, actually genius, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, let's get past bias, right? What do I need to do to get
yeah.
past the bias? I mean, the lying about and working with live patients, like that crosses boundary for me, but
My thing, like, have nothing to do with medical. My thing, I had an indication it might be like not real when all her board of advisors were retired Army generals.
yeah.
Like, okay, you're not making you're not making stealth airplanes or bombs. You know, you're making a medical device that these people have no knowledge about.
Yeah. I mean, they seemed real serious and they were super impressive,
Yeah.
but they didn't know the technology.
No.
And navigating the military, if that's a funding source is great to have one, but all of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bananas. I just couldn't look away. It was such a good train wreck.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, WeWork used to be the place to be back in the day when it first started. All the startup stuff going there, the events, the parties, it was
Yeah.
the place to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, they could spend unlimited money.
Yep.
Yeah, because they didn't no one cared about return. All they had to do was get big and buy the market.
Yep. And now they gave them another $100 million to do blow with the same thing with apartment buildings. So like, and of course that pissed a lot of like startup founders off. Like, we're scratching, bootstrapping and this random dude who like stole money from everyone gets another 100 million.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I
It's
mean,
frustrating, of course.
they want you to go big,
Yeah.
right? Like, they're coming back to it, right? You
Yeah.
gotta play to win,
Yep.
not play to survive,
Yeah.
and venture is just a game of playing to win
Yeah.
and win on a massive scale.
I know the kind of joke now is like, suppose there's two startups. One startup is like, they really have a good business, have customer traction, whatever. They'll be told no. Someone else comes in, yeah, I want a food truck. I'm gonna like do it with AI. Here's $10 million.
Yeah.
Have you coded AI before? No. Okay, here's another $10 million to hire some AI people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what?
I mean, is your vision big, right? Do you have a
Yeah.
shot to win?
Yep.
In the HR space, one of the things, and I think it's very similar for picking a startup,
Mm.
um, was it Netflix? Anyways, there was someone who was writing about how to have a culture of A players.
Yeah. Patty McCord,
Is that
the Netflix culture brief. Yeah.
yeah, and it was we would rather hire an A player who could be an F player
Yep.
than hire a B player who might be an A player.
Yep.
And so I think that's so true with startup founders too, right? Like this guy is crazy. He could totally flame out, but he's never going to settle for being a Walking Dead founder.
So how do you do this like when you're hiring, right? Because they'll always everyone says, hire the A player, right? But the A player is probably like working for a startup that's already got funded. He's working for Amazon or Boring, right? So how do you find A players? And then they say, never hire a C player, right? Well, sometimes all you have is C players, right? So you like, and of course, 5 C players don't equal A player, right?
Yeah.
So how do you
I
work
don't
through
think
that?
8 C players equal an A player.
No.
Well, clearly how I solved it was by giving them a co-founder title. Yeah, I mean, and still Sev, my technology co-founder current, will tell you that I try and shield people from accountability. Like I try and take the burden on myself. So you have to hire A players, you have to enable them, and then you have to make them own it.
What's that thing? A players hire other A players, B players hire C players.
Yeah, yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And I've totally found it to be true, right? Like they don't want to be upstaged. Um, yeah, for all my fragile ego and not raising enough money, I've never had enough sense to not hire people who are way better than me.
So let's suppose you do hire a C player, right? And you quickly say, okay, I might have messed up this person's C player. But in their heart, they know they're A player. Like, how do you break it down to them? Like, hey, Jason, like, you think way too highly of yourself, right? You're barely a C minus player, right?
Well, I mean, again, I have a monitoring and testing platform that breaks things down into logs of pass fail. So, and a DevOps background, right? So, like, there is a test that you can surface that
Okay.
gives you objective metrics for what success looks like. Um, Eventually, like, we have an incredible community. He led community for us until the funding crunch, and is now just someone that's an incredible partner. Um, and his work is fairly long tail, right? Like the work he's doing that he has done for us and done exceptionally well, we'll know in like 5 or 6 years if it really worked. And so you couldn't hold him to those day-to-day
Yeah.
metrics. Those jobs are hard. But yeah, like, are you supposed to be driving leads? Did you drive leads? Are they converting? Like those
Yeah.
aren't things that you can hide from.
Yeah. You did 100 phone calls, no one answered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no one answered?
Yeah.
Not even an answer machine?
Yeah. So like you better figure it out. How do you get them to answer? Like,
Yeah.
do you have accountability for the function you're in charge of? Like, I see reasons why it didn't work. Then why are you continuing down this path? Find something that will work.
Yeah.
And if it won't work, then I'm not going to hire someone to do something that could never work.
Yeah. So do you plan on raising another round, or are you good with fundraising for now?
We know we're going to have to, right? Like if you think about the monitoring and observability market in the cloud space, for instance, so like Azure and AWS and all those DevOps tools, The observability market there is 140, $150 billion market. Like Splunk was just acquired for 30 billion, excuse me, dollars. The revenue technology market is like 1.1 to 1.2 times bigger. So like we're sitting, if someone with a technology like ours, when they capture the market, is going to be a 40, $50 billion company. And that's going to take capital. So we know we'll have to get there, but we want to know who to hire, how much it's going to cost us before we go and raise another round.
And so you did a pre-seed the first time, right?
Did a
So is the
pre-seed?
next round gonna be a seed round or a round?
Yeah, we did a pre-seed and then we did a top off, a very small top off on top of that, which probably will wind up in the history books being called a seed round. So our next one.
Okay. And did you raise only in Seattle, or you went like all over the United States?
So we, our initial fundraisers were through my personal network in Atlanta and then Techstars.
Okay.
And then we had some great investors here, like 9 Mile Labs was one of our first checks in with Techstars, and then Brightside Capital out of the Bay Area. And then when we did the top off, Ascend, Kirby Winfield,
Greenfield, okay.
and Sarah Imbach as well here in town, that I met both of them through Techstars. And so they participated a little bit later.
Okay.
And it was through them that we met Bay Area investors.
Okay. So when you were raising, what did you do? Was the concept like, okay, I'll make this up. I'm gonna raise $1 million no matter what, or if I go 5 months, if I raise $1 million, I'm gonna stop.
So mine was not that definitive, and it should have been, right? I was like, I think we need 3.5 million. And then we got 3.5 million and then we stopped, right?
Okay.
Like it was not like I should have, I had my financial model that said how much it was going to cost. But I didn't believe any of the inputs. Like it was based on like the model,
all the projections that are worthless and stuff, and like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I also, again, that Netflix model, like I really believe a small team of A players that are paid very well is better than a large team and is more nimble and can respond faster. So, I didn't believe the models. I didn't believe what the investors were telling me. I didn't have confidence that I knew what I was doing. So like all of those things came together to be a really wishy-washy, pathetic fundraising process.
So not to play, the back in time game, but like if you go back in time, how much money do you think you could have raised?
I should have raised like right out of Techstars, like a $6 million seed.
Okay.
But who knows? I might have wasted it, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have the right people
That's
in
the thing
play.
people say all the time, right? You raise all this money. Next thing you know, you get like gold plated silverware for your office, at least now the whole WeWork building,
Yeah, totally. Or hiring people who I never would have been able to figure out how to hold accountable because I didn't know what I wanted them to do. Like we're doing some product-led growth stuff and the metrics need to be super tight and like looked at daily and really aggressive metrics so we can figure out where to put the next tiny micro investment to make the whole thing work better. And the team we were working with a year ago couldn't get their head around it and didn't want to be held accountable to that level of micro. They're like, these aren't statistically significant. Well, no shit, but Stephen, our CRO, he's got all the good Bible quotes. He's like, wherever you find 3, there you shall find me. And it's right? Like if 3 people get hung up in the same place, I don't need it to be statistically significant to know that there's a hitch in the product that we need to fix.
Tell us more about your background.
It's all over the place. So got a finance degree in college. Almost didn't graduate because I left college early to go work at MTV. And then went straight to Capitol Hill and worked on K Street, which is the lobbying firms are all in K Street, worked in public relations and lobbying. And then it was, the initial .com boom. So I wanted to get into tech. And so I went into tech PR as a result. And one of my customers was a startup and I was their 4th hire.
So do you think you ever go back to the corporate world?
Well, I did in between,
Okay.
right? When everything that company actually got acquired, before there were SPACs, there were things called reverse acquisitions, which is essentially a SPAC. And so that company got acquired by a reverse acquisition from a big funding group out of Toronto. Again, also really smart people that I learned a lot from. Um, Took it public, which is crazy, right? And after that, it just got demolished in the 2008 financial crisis. And so after that, I was like, I'm going to work for a corporate for a bit. And that's what brought me out here to Seattle, actually, was that corporate gig.
And you're on the advisory board for something called the Product Management Center at UW.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So talk about that role. What do they
Well,
do?
I need to take it off because they officially closed last month.
So
So
they're not around no more?
they're not around
Why are they
anymore.
closed down for?
It was a lot of their mission was diversity.
Mhm,
And so, once we got farther past George Floyd, I
mhm,
don't think corporations cared about diversity as much as they
mhm.
said they did. And so funding was a lot harder.
Okay.
But gosh, I mean, just the can't remember Jeffrey's last name, but the amazing professor who built that is just an absolute inspiration. Put together really great
So this
people.
started around the George Floyd era, so to speak?
Mhm.
And what was the mission of it? Just like make more diverse product people
Yeah,
or
yeah. It was well, I mean, the product management center was about like all of the different product
Mhm,
management
mhm,
methodologies and having a center and a focus at UW. But one of the premier programs was a diversity initiative
mhm,
to help bring diverse people into
mhm.
product management. And God bless, with everything going on with AI, I think we need more diverse voices in
Yeah, we need
product
more
management.
divorces too.
We not in my friends. We've been at an age where it's like starting to come to a fever pitch.
Yeah. So what is product management?
Okay. So I would go like full Kotler on product management. Like Philip Kotler was the godfather of marketing. And he was the one who would talk about like the 5 Ps of the like price, the physical
Mhm,
product, packaging. Um, to me, that is product management, right? Like it's everything from what does the customer need to how are you going to go to market. At Terex, the industrial I worked for, it was most of the product wound up being what features need to come standard and fixing our delivery mechanism so we can hold inventory and get them out quickly, which was totally novel at the time to the company.
So a product manager, they kind of like oversee the software developers, the designer, sort of.
Yeah, so it's UX, a lot of feature prioritization, and I think a great product manager can understand what needs to be done from an infrastructure perspective to help the product grow quickly. So I think sometimes there's a natural tension between a CTO owning kind of the infrastructure and the back end of the
Mhm,
product and a product manager owning the customer and
mhm.
like UX forward. Um, but I think a great product manager can have that vision of what the product should be that much forward.
In a perfect world, will a company have like all the funding they need? What number of employees should a product manager be?
Oh gosh, early,
Early.
early, early. I mean, I happen to be our product owner. Um, and so, we have one on staff because that's a lot of my
Yeah.
background, but um, sub 10.
Sub 10, okay.
Yeah. I mean, because you can have people who are doing demand gen and
Mhm.
sales, and they should be connected in my mind along those metrics.
Yeah.
But the product owner should be thinking about go to market. Like product managers at Microsoft are marketing functions.
So product manager, product marketing, that's that's an interchangeable term.
Well, at Microsoft, they are for sure.
Okay.
At different companies, they can be different things.
Okay.
Like, I think there's a really nice place where you can have a distinction between a technical product manager and a product manager or product owner. I think a great early employee should be able to write their own stories and should be able to write detailed specs or like understand API endpoints, things like that.
So I'm guessing to be a good product manager, you need to be like a good collaborative person, right?
That's the whole job. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you need to be a listener and take in a lot of data.
And be able to like, what's we're looking for, like soothe ego, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. But you also have to be able to stand up for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm in a bunch of different product management groups, and that's the thing I hear all the time is that like they're getting run all over. And to me, that's a lack of process and a lack of transparency if you're getting run all over. But it also could be ego, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're really annoyed that someone's asking you to do a feature or asking you to integrate data points into the product, um, why? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's an ego problem, not a, you know, like especially with startups, the the CEO and the founders are going to have to have opinions.
Yeah.
There is no amount of data that you're going to get early in a product or a new industry because it's not iterative, right? There's not going to be something that says this is the feature you need when no one in the world has ever had that feature. It's the Henry Ford quote,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
If you ask the people, they're going to say they want a faster
Yeah.
horse. And so data is not going to tell you what you need. You're going to have some people to make some guesses.
So how do you do this? And it's probably an extreme situation. Suppose you have a developer, they'll work on a feature for you. And suppose they worked for like three months, right? And then, y'all decide, you know what? We don't need this feature. Like, how do you like soothe his ego? Like, hey guy, hey Jason, I know you worked 3 months on this feature. You spent a lot of time. We're not gonna use no more, right? Because you spent 3 months doing it. You're like, man, basically this time you screw what you did, right?
Yeah,
How you
yeah.
deal with that?
Like my work wasn't good enough
Yeah.
or whatever. Oh gosh. I mean, I think if they're not willing to look at the data and walk away from it from a shift in the organization, they're probably not the right person.
Okay.
Like those kinds of in accounting, they call them sunk costs, right? Like if they can't walk away from a sunk cost because
Yeah. The
they're
point of no
overcommitted.
return, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like shelve it. See if
Yeah.
there's something interesting back there that you might be able to learn from it someday. But yeah, there's people who are overcommitted. It's ego. At that
Yeah.
point, it's ego. It has nothing to do with what your customer needs. It has nothing to do with what the company needs. It's ego.
And all your people are here in Seattle or all over the
Nope,
place?
completely distributed. I'm the
Okay.
only one here.
Okay.
And it's awful. I am such an extrovert being here by myself.
And so they're all in the United States.
Nope.
Okay.
Our CTO is in Canada. Um, our incredible developer who's working on a lot of our AI stuff is in the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you run the company off Seattle time?
You know,
Like, how do y'all do
we
meetings, to keep someone doing a meeting at 4 in the morning or 8 o'clock at night or
we ask everyone to keep up their calendars and make
okay.
their availability. So I tend to work East Coast hours here, and West Coast hours, let's be honest. But yeah, everyone's allowed to set their own calendars.
Okay.
And then if something's not available on the calendar, you just ask for it.
Okay. And like, don't tell us the details. Like, how did you and your co-founders figure out the equity splits? Right? Is like, were you like, I'm the CEO, you're going to take what I give you, or like, how do y'all go through that process?
So I had the company and the IP when I brought on my first co-founders. So a lot of it was that, we just met with the attorneys and the attorneys made recommendations. These co-founders, um, yeah, we literally just opened up the cap table and looked because we have two employee co-founders as well. So there's 5 of us that we really consider to be founders. And when money's tight, we're the ones who sacrifice and don't take paychecks and things like that.
So what are some things that a product management center did that were actually great, right?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think everything they did was great. But
Now, do people actually get jobs after being this product
oh
management
yeah,
center?
yeah, they
Okay.
had incredible placements.
Okay.
They found great candidates. I was part of screening for this
Mhm.
diversity and inclusion training.
What was that application to get accepted to this or?
So oh gosh, I don't know why I can't think of the words. It was like an accelerator,
Mhm.
diversity. It was like um, a training cohort where
Okay.
we took people or they took people through training on product management, especially underrepresented and diverse
Okay.
people. So um,
And do they have to have they have to have a tech background or somewhere like a philosophy degree? Just say, I want to be a product manager now, and they go learn.
so it didn't have to be technology. So they could have been a product manager in engineering
Okay.
or consumer goods. So we weren't focused on that. But the screening criteria were definitely focused on someone who um have you heard about the queen bee syndrome in women? It's where a woman has gotten up in her career and then she squashes the women beneath that come behind her.
I've seen that in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sad. And so I think they were trying to look for diverse product managers who would lift up the community around
Okay.
them, which I think is great. So one of the things they screened for was that.
Okay.
Um, and also like a learning mindset and someone who had put effort into self-educating on product management.
And what was your role as an advisor? Like you just go like once a week and sit in a class, or they would like send you people to mentor, or what was your role as an advisor?
I mentored. My primary role was screening for the candidates, and then on the advisory board, helping put together, some of the programs, doing some of the just hands-on work, and then giving feedback on the programs that they were considering,
Any
and
talk,
then speaking to the classes.
any thoughts that you and other advisors profess like just doing this on your own, like spin it up somewhere else and just call it like, the Seattle Product Marketing Diversity Center or something like that?
I bet he would. I bet he
Yeah.
absolutely would. I don't, oh gosh,
I mean, of
like
course,
diversity is
yeah.
so important in AI. So I'm struggling with it. I didn't like I've never had a problem getting diversity, so I got less value out of it, right? Like I get diversity into our company by virtue of where we're hiring from, and our values.
Yeah.
So diversity, although we don't have any Black team members right now, which I would really like to rectify. We have one office here in
Yeah.
Seattle and one in Tallahassee, Florida.
Mhm.
So something I would like to rectify. But there were things that I was struggling with from product perspective that diversity was not one of my biggest challenges.
Yeah. So do you think there's actually a definition for diversity? I think a lot of people get diversity wrong, right? I think some people think, I might get blasted for these two things. Like a lot of people think, like diversity is only color based, right? Or only like sex based, right? Diversity can be like handicap, blind, location, LGBTQ, all these
Yeah.
things. So there's that. And then, man, I thought I was going to say next. So let's go with that for now, so I remember.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I don't know if you remember when the president of Harvard stepped down.
yeah,
There was
the black female president. Yeah,
mhm,
I remember that.
there was a trustee at Harvard who wrote an article that just kind of went and made it super obvious to me. And he said, the DEI initiative at Harvard was not, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm probably going to get it wrong, so I apologize, but it was not about diversity. It wasn't about going to the liberal arts school and making sure that we had, adequate representation of men and women in the liberal arts school or the women's studies. Like, how do we get men into the women's studies program to create diversity? It was about promoting historically marginalized communities. So African American, and it really culminated with what was happening with Israeli and Palestine.
Yeah.
So the Palestinians are perceived by the DEI movement, according to him, but it rang true to me. Are perceived as the historically marginalized community, and the Israelis and the Jewish settlers are the people of power. Even though in what like I'll call myself dumb white girl, right? Like, dumb privileged white girl speak, you would think that Jewish
Yeah.
would have been someone that would have been
You would
included
think, yeah.
and supported in the DEI movement. And so he kind of went through and detailed it, and you can see it ring true in a lot of places. And I find it fascinating, and it's not wrong, but it's not a diversity movement. It's about supporting historically marginalized people.
Yeah.
Um,
To me, that's a totally different thing.
it's a totally different thing, and they're both worthy. But to me, the reason we focus on diversity is because the differing perspectives help us succeed better.
Yeah. All the stats show the more diversity is, you are, the higher everything is, right? KPIs, metrics, anything measurable, you have more diverse people. Diverse your thought, idea, whatever your definition is,
Yeah.
color, whatever it is,
100%. And
birth.
it's thinking styles. It's, are you a neurodiverse person? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I think diversity is a lot more than just the color of your skin or your gender. Again, I'm from Tallahassee, and at FAMU, they had minority scholarships for white people
Yeah.
because they wanted diversity at FAMU, which I applaud, right? Like, you need you are better by having diverse perspectives and people being exposed to
Yeah.
them.
So the next one I remember now, right? I think a lot of people like one of my pet peeves, like you have people out there like they're like, I'm pro immigrant, pro Hispanic, pro female. That's all fine and good, but you're not really for diversity, right? Like be pro whatever it is, but don't try to say you're for diversity, right? When you only want your own group to get in there, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's like, again, like if FAMU, which is, gosh, the number 2 historically Black college
Yep.
in the United
Yep.
States, said our diversity initiative is supporting Black
Mhm.
men, well, that's not diversity.
Yeah.
That is
Status
definite.
quo for your organization.
Yeah, 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 and you're not getting diverse perspectives. No one's getting better by
Yeah.
hearing both sides of the story.
The other thing kills me too, like I know here in Seattle, you see a lot of startup founders. I want to hire like minorities, whatever. I can only find white people. But then when they go recruit at the University of Washington, or they're doing the same, white bro stuff all the time, right? They're not really going out to the communities where those people are.
Yeah, one of my good friends works for a company that shall not be named, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, the DEI team." It's a company where the DEI group in the IT team, and it's like 98% Indian, and
Mhm.
a lot of the teams are offshore, and then they bring them here. So like, it's just a very high concentration of people from India. He's like, and they're all on the DEI council. It's all of these Indian men on the
Yeah.
DEI council. He's like, that is not DEI to me. Like we need diverse
You might need
perspectives.
one of them.
Yeah, like
I need one of them.
yeah, it's a mix, right? Like in Tallahassee, there are not a lot of Asian,
Hmm. Yeah.
Indian, Philippines, China. There just aren't a lot of
Yeah.
Asian people. And so that diversity is sorely lacking, but
Mhm.
white and Black people, we got that.
Yeah. And I think another thing company get wrong too, though, like they're like suppose you sell your company $100 billion, you decide with someone else, right? And you go for another startup. There's like 6 employees, 7 employees there. You're the first female. Say, hey, you start working on Monday. Hey, we're interviewing a female tomorrow. I need you to come sit down the interview panel and be a part of the DI team. You're like, you didn't hire me for this.
Yeah.
You hired me to do product. Nowhere in the interview process you say you want to be part of your, bring more females to the place thing, right? I think this is totally unfair.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've always enjoyed it. And I have a child who's just like me, and I watch him join like every club in school. Like I'm a joiner by nature. Um, which is why I did Techstars, by the way.
Mhm.
Like I was like, I want to join it. I want, like, if we're gonna go venture backed, and I think
Go,
we have
go
to,
all the
like,
way.
yeah, let's do it. Let's join everything and have every
Yep.
experience. Um, but no, you can't expect people to do that. And the introverts hate it. Like,
Right.
why put them through that?
Yeah. So why tech stars and not YC? Or just because tech stars was here in Seattle?
I didn't know YC existed.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I was
You
not
you
a
you
savvy founder.
you would have probably done both of them at the same time knowing you.
I probably would have joined anything you let me. Yeah. But I met Christopher and Aviel Ginsberg. I had worked, done consulting at Aviel's previous
Mhm.
company and really respected him. So, I just wanted to be part of what they were doing, and I didn't know the difference.
So as your journey as a startup founder, what's something in the past that you really struggled with, right? Like it really kicked your butt, you can't figure it out. But today you laugh at yourself like, how could I be such a dumbass white girl? Like, how could I not? It was so simple, but I couldn't figure it out.
No, I mean, I continuously, I mentioned we struggled with a co-founder, who told me that I was holding everyone back by having such high expectations.
Yeah, that he would have had to go.
Yeah,
He would have had to go.
it was my expectations are too high. People can't live up to it. I'm holding people to impossible standards. Like, I'm expecting people to work too hard.
Nothing wrong with high standards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now that I have a co-founder like Sev, our CTO, um, thank God he doesn't hold me to his standard, because he's exceptional, and the other people we work with. But like, there is no reason not to have that standard. Like, we can be exceptional. And it's okay that I'm exceptional,
Yeah,
and I don't need to like second guess myself.
yeah. So how many people have you got working at your company now?
Millions. 9.
9. Any plan like growing, like getting more employees in the future? Do you have like a 6 month, 1 year plan, like hire more people or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, right now we're very organically grown. So we are break even. So we don't have to raise money to survive. So we are growing as customer demands need it. And we have a couple of huge accounts that are closing that will need us to hire against.
So do your previous investors or any time like pressure, like, hey, like when you gonna hire more people, when you gonna grow, the faster you grow, the faster I get my money back.
They are no, like they like especially like Kirby at Ascend, the Servant Ventures team, Techstars, they are very supportive because most of the enterprise software companies who had raised as little as we did and were kind of where we were, they've cratered. So, us continuing to grow and having really great revenue and being able to get to break even is better than most. But we need to like triple our growth rate
Okay.
in order to get our next round of funding because we've been around a little bit too long.
So
Because I didn't raise enough money to grow
yeah.
fast enough.
So not when you raise a fund, of course the investors do the due diligence on you. You're supposed to do a data room, they do a deep dive on you. But how did you go about doing your due diligence on potential investors?
Yeah. That's where Techstars was really cool. So I went through and I looked up founders that VC had invested in that failed. And I called them and asked them to tell me, because like when everything goes good, like your investors support you. But I wanted to know what failure looked like with that investor. And it again, I did take investment from one company because of that.
That's smart on your part. One thing I've learned too, like while I'm doing my own in like fundraising stuff. So I'm raising a pre-seed, right, early stage, right?
Yeah.
I'm learning that a lot of VC firms have early stage. They really mean is post-seed A round. So I've been learning that, unfortunately.
Well, I think again, that's where the Bay Area is better. Like, I mean, I do think to me, especially for female founders, right? Like you fit the profile, you've got like the podcast
Mhm.
and the following and
Mhm.
like all the cool stuff, right? And you're a dude. Um, I think what especially women who can be a little risk adverse like I was and start off with like a hair in the deal being a woman, what they miss is that there are just rules and they are published, right? Like this needs to be a 5 to 10 billion dollar market segment. Like you need to be able to grow fast. You need to be planning on growing fast. And so I think there are, and those are the Silicon Valley rules. Let me be clear. Those are not the rules for regular investors who might want to just see a return on cash and have a regular cash flow. So if you want to be venture backed, then you've just got to play by those rules and they're not going to come to you with those expectations. They want to know that you can execute. They want to know that you understand the rules and that you're going to go out there and kick ass with their money.
Yeah. Um, so can you give advice to anyone who's like the only one in the room, only female, only Black person, only blank in the room?
I oh gosh, that's so hard. Because I never recognize that I'm that person. Like I am just like I can recognize when I'm the only extrovert in the room for sure. I can recognize when I'm the only old person in the room because I sit up and I'm not sitting on my phone. Um, so that one doesn't and again, also going through a finance degree in college and then working in really male dominated industries, I was the only woman in the room so often. Um, so I think I guess what I always did that seemed to have worked for me, if you consider me successful, was to look at the things we had in common as opposed to the thing that made me feel other. Oh, it's a Brene Brown quote, right? She's like, if you are looking for validation that you are other, that you don't fit in and you don't belong, you will always find it. And so I would argue that anyone who is feeling other and out there should look for the ways that they do fit in, as opposed to looking for the ways that they might not, or focusing on how they feel other.
So recently, we had Web3, NFT, the metaverse, the next big thing. People invested billions of dollars in them. Seemed like they're like nothing happened with that. Do you think the same thing can happen in AI, or you think AI is actually the real deal?
Yeah, I never got it. Like I never like there are blockchain uses that I really like still, by the way. Like I love that for being a way to validate the authenticity and the provenance of art. Like blockchain makes perfect sense, right? And currency, not the way that it's been done, but it made sense for a universal currency to me. But I never thought it was the next big thing.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get it.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
Like I got what they were saying. I got the manifesto. Like I could read it, I could understand it, but I was like, I I don't see how this is going to impact my life.
Yeah.
And I do not feel that way.
Has AI affected your business any kind of way? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but how is it affecting your business?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the people who are managing revenue tech stacks, like Salesforce, right? Like you build all of these integrations to Salesforce and it's a little clunky. Like um, there was a Google quote and they called them Frankenstacks. There's like all this data that's happening. It's a total mess. It's Frankenstack. And it's definitely my experience personally as well with these different tools. If you add AI to that, it's not like one more tool, it's an exponential level of complication. And our customers have definitely seen that. So it's helping us get in at a strategic level with our customers as opposed to just supporting incredible ops leaders. Um, like if you think about the companies that are trying to roll out a bot to answer customer success questions, like Alaska Airlines, y'all should call us. They roll out this bot and someone's able to respond to it so many times and talk it into giving it a free ticket, right? Like drift happens. So having a tool that can monitor and observe and make sure that things aren't drifting or that something is relating back to the correct source of truth and that the source of truth is even connected. Like it seems pretty obvious that it's a good place for us to be.
Can you imagine if you're on the flight where the door fell off, you try to call customer service and a bot answered,
Oh my God.
the plane door that fell off. Hi, here's some articles that might solve that problem for you.
Like an IVR. Like, yeah, there is no solution. Like, we have no history of someone asking that question. Hold for a real person.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Or the worst part is it's like not instructed to do that. Like what's your level of confidence that this has happened before and you should answer this question? Like they don't have that confidence level
Yeah,
in there and they just like roll with it.
I know. So I think AI is a good thing, but of course the thing is that AI ethics, like how do you make sure the people like quote unquote coding the AI has ethics, right? Like how do
Yeah.
you, I mean, there's already like, facial recognition bias and a bunch of HR recruiting apps and stuff, like I don't know how you fix that, right?
How do you think you fix it? I mean, you're way better at this HR stuff.
I don't know. It's like, first of all, you just can have like 10 white dudes as a face recognition, right? You got to get a sampling, like what are the percentages from across the world, get that sampling everywhere. Of course, that takes, money and time, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh gosh, and I've totally forgotten her name as well. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names today. She's an incredible female founder. She looks just like Merida from the Disney movie Brave. Beautiful red hair. And when we were in an AI work group together, she was talking about how there is no good medical data on pregnant women
How's that even possible?
because no one will test on pregnant women. So they've been excluded from the test for safety reasons. And so there's this horrible blind spot in the data about what is the impact or what are the needs of pregnant women. But all the AI is being trained on the data that it has,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a blind spot.
That's a big ass blind spot.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that, and it's for a good reason, right? No
Yeah,
one's excluding pregnant women because no one cares about them.
yeah.
They care too much. And
And I'm
so,
pretty sure if you're a pregnant female, can we test this on you? They'll be like, hell no, you can't test this on me.
yeah,
Like, you better go find someone else.
right, exactly. So yeah, no one's even bothering. God, what was her name? So terrible. She's amazing. But,
Hey, I might have the name, bro. Is the female F bomb club still around?
it is.
Okay.
They just restarted, and that was actually my very first founder group in
Mhm.
Seattle, but like where I felt heard and seen. It was really cool.
Okay.
They just handed the mantle over to an incredible new leader who seems just beyond energized, and it's really cool.
And I think they should do like monthly meetings. And you people like go
It's
and
the
pitch and stuff.
first or last Friday of the month.
Okay.
At the oh my gosh, it's not the butt crack of dawn, like a fucking early
Yeah,
morning.
like seven or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And so you'd get together and they were amazing. You'd learn so much from it.
Are there any other like lack of a better term, female focused, female based networking startup groups in Seattle?
So the one that I would recommend to any woman is following Leslie Feinzig's work. So
She's with Grandma Walker, right?
Graham and Walker. Yep, 100%. And so she will point you to a ton of different resources. We gosh, we've been supported by Women in Cloud. So people who are in enterprise, Women in Cloud is amazing. They do an accelerator as well, just like Grimm and Walker does, but very much focused on enterprise software and partnering with hyperscalers. Um, we just were accepted to Google's
Nice.
Women Series A Accelerator that
Nice. That's
next
big.
week. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't been through it yet, but I expect it's going to be amazing.
What's your take on the current like Seattle? I guess like you started your company like three years ago,
Should should have, but no, it was 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's been your take on the Seattle tech startup scene, VC incubator scene since 2018? Things have been growing for the better, for the worse. You always hear these negative connotations like in Seattle, you got to go to the Bay Area to raise money. No one wants to give you money. And then like there's all these silos in Seattle, like there's Founders Live, New Tech Northwest, Female Founders Club. Um, I think Kirby does his like yearly startup dinner,
Oh,
whatever.
the bash.
The best.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all these things going on, but it's just like any of them really connect. John Seacrest does the Seattle Angel Conference 2, 4 times a year.
Yeah. 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 Oh, and I love Flywheel if you're on the
Like we're the
over on the east side.
one up in Winnetachi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I love that conference. It's really high value. Um, I came from Atlanta to Seattle. And my first startup was in Atlanta. So I feel like Seattle is 3x
Hmm.
the investment
Yeah.
community that Atlanta is.
Yeah.
Um, so I have a little bit of bias in thinking that
Yeah.
Seattle's a pretty incredible community and that and literally like just we have been supported by every
Mhm.
nook and cranny of the community.
Okay.
Amazon's been a supporter, Microsoft's been a supporter through their partnerships programs. Like we've just been incredibly supported and loved.
Great. This is my take, and I could be wrong, of course, but I think Seattle tries too hard to be San Francisco, right?
Yes.
And they never will be. I think Seattle's gonna be happy what they have here, right?
Yeah.
Like like San Francisco has like invest like $100 trillion or something like that, something made up number. We're like, I think the Bay Area raises like 47% of all VC across the world. We're like 2.5. But you're never going to catch up with San Francisco.
Well, and why do you want to be San Francisco,
Exactly.
right? Like we should be, and again, I was a little bit indoctrinated by Christopher, but I think he's right. This is the enterprise hub of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And so we should be the place where enterprise software starts.
How did you go about getting your enterprise customers here?
My personal relationships have equated to absolutely zero. They were all inbound. My relationships
Okay.
have helped none.
None. Okay.
I mean, we have ongoing opportunities with people that I have relationships
Yeah.
with at these companies.
Like, aren't you my friend?
Yeah, and they're like, "We'll help," but, like, if they don't come to us with a need, a
Uh-huh.
burning need, the deal takes forever to
Yeah.
close. And so when they find us and someone says, someone says, "Oh my gosh, we're doing a migration, everything's breaking, what do I do?" And they say, "You need to go use Stack Moxie to make sure that everything's gonna be okay." It goes like that.
You might already answer this question, but does the name of your company, does that signify anything important or just a name?
We had an amazing CMO who did the rebrand. And it was not a name I loved, but it was a name that met I'd given criteria for the name, which I wanted real words. I didn't want us to make up a word. I wanted people to be able to pronounce it, and I wanted it to stay in. Our previous branding had been kind of in the steampunk genre,
Mhm.
which I think really works. Where what is
Yeah.
it? Mechanical Turk was where they were
Yeah.
taking back and
Mhm.
handing it to people, but ours is kind of like the first automation for the people who are doing the work. So I wanted it to stay in that genre, and I feel like it nailed it. So it's not the name I would have picked, but it fit my criteria. And yeah, like the reason we came to it is because we kept hearing people saying, "Oh my God, it takes a lot of
Uh-huh.
moxie to build all that crap.
Yeah.
Takes Stack Moxie to manage it."
Okay.
So
Makes sense. Yeah. What are your hobbies?
my husband would tell you expensive renovations. I really like renovating my house. I literally have cabinets on the back porch that my son and I are going to install together the day after my husband has surgery this week. Just going to do it ourselves. Um, Yeah, I really like architecture. I feel
Okay.
like I might have missed my calling.
You ever do any design yourself, like architecture designs yourself, like
I
any buildings or anything or whatever?
I have redone a couple of houses myself and done worked with a draftsman to redo my house, and then working with an architect realized how lacking I was. And then my contractor actually paid me to work with some of his prospects who were struggling with what to do. So I love it, but no professional.
So, who are your mentors, either now or in the past?
Oh gosh. Um, I have had amazing ones. Okay, I'm gonna go way back. My first bosses at MTV taught me something really important. It was Frank and Giannotti and Hoyt Christopher. Uh, they got their start actually in college on Singled Out, working as producers. I think they helped create it. They taught me when I was 19 and working at MTV that no one knows any better than you do. So if you think you can handle it, just wing it and do it and figure it out, which I think is really important to learn out of college. And I don't think kids learn that until they're like 40 now. Um, and then uh, Catherine Laws was a boss in PR who just believed in me and pushed me really, really hard. So she's passed. And then Dave Gilry recruited me out here for Terex and just believed in me like no one's ever believed in me before. And was kind of the first person who was like, "Oh yeah, you did 27 million in new revenue this year. That's embarrassing. You should have done like 100 million." Like he didn't see a ceiling and he really believed in me. Um, oh gosh, our investors now, like Sarah Mbach, Kirby, Niraj Gupta at Servan Ventures is just someone who always believes in me. Nate Doran at Swan Ventures. And to hold me accountable, right? Like I don't think a good mentor is someone who like just cheers you on. But for sure the most are my parents. So my dad is an incredible entrepreneur and really successful. And my mom is a feminist. And so like I just get it. It's funny that they're so different, still married, totally want to beat each other with a stick sometimes, I'm sure, but they're a really good partnership, even if they don't realize it all the time. And I think I get both of my skills from them.
So, back in your college days, did you ever think as a joke to bring like a male chauvinist pig to meet your mom? Hey, this is Jason. You're like, this is some like the stereotypical, you know, pig, right?
So my mom was worse than that.
Mm.
She was both a feminist and like 5'5", 110 pounds after giving birth, gorgeous, and woke us up every morning with placemats and hot breakfast
Mhm.
before she would go to work.
Yeah.
She was like the reason why like women are like, don't try and do it all. And
Uh,
like she totally did it all.
yeah.
Bananas, like crazy, like master's degree, worked in the governor's administration, like amazing career. So she would have been fine. Like the chauvinist wouldn't have bothered
Yeah.
her. Because it
I
was
think that'd been
her.
a funny joke on your part, though.
Oh man. I mean, I brought home worse guys than that to her. And the irony is my husband's name's Jason.
Is it?
Who
Nice.
is supporting us, who is doing an amazing job. So we're able to be on this
So, why do you
adventure.
think, you always hear the term, can females have it all right? But you never hear, can guys have it all right?
I know. It really sucks, right? Yeah. I don't try and clean, so I
Mm.
have no intention of having it all. My house
Yeah.
is dirty and
Mhm.
trashed, and yeah, I don't even try.
That's the thing you gave up on.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't like it. I'm not good at it. Yeah, my poor children will grow up thinking it's okay to
Yeah.
have like clothes on the floor.
Yeah. Well, there's no diseases around here. That's good enough.
I mean, whatever, it's fine. Um, yeah, like I I don't even pretend.
Okay.
Like I am terrible at keep like, oh gosh, there's the meme at the beginning of every year where it's like I'm gonna quit my day job
Mhm.
so I can read the emails from school.
Yeah.
I literally go to school with $150 Amazon gift cards and
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm gonna forget shit. I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna keep up with the
And you have kids right now? Are they still in
3
school?
in elementary school
Elementary school? Okay. Nice. Nice.
and sports,
And sports?
select sports too.
Oh, wow. Another thing to do.
Yeah, I'm an abject failure. I screw up all of it.
So back to mentors. Now the second part, to me, the more important part. Who are you mentoring?
So I officially have an amazing mentor that I work with through UW right now. Um, Her name is Madison. She's got an incredible startup and is finishing her MBA. She's brilliant. Um, I do mentoring through Techstars, although like I can't even take credit. The most recent woman I've mentored 100% mentored me and has been just amazing. And then I do get a ton of just cold outreach from other founders asking for advice and help. And so, not as formally, but just the same way everyone was willing to pick up the phone when I'd call and ask questions, do a lot of that myself.
And for your company, do you only do enterprise, or like what's the smallest company? And is it like based on revenue, size of company, or what's the smallest you go down?
We don't have any paying customers who are anything smaller than enterprise, but we have a free tier. So
Okay.
like it, especially like the Google Postmaster monitoring or website monitoring, the free tier is great for startups. So we have lots, we have thousands of users who are using our free tier and are going to need us as they get bigger. But paying customers tend to be either really fast growing startups like Algolia G2, or enterprises like Malwarebytes and Bank of Hawaii, big enterprises.
So as an extrovert, how did you survive COVID? As far as like not being able to see anyone.
I was saying earlier, like I spent time on the couch. Like, what did I do for myself? I was calling it like self-care by sitting on the couch, like binge watching shows. Like, I think it's actually called clinical depression. Like I did not come out unscathed. And I'm a Floridian. So
Yeah.
I was stuck here, couldn't go anyplace warm
Mm.
because you'd have to fly.
Yeah.
And so the lack of sun plus the lack of ability to go someplace warm plus the lack of people, we had our people,
Yeah.
right? We live on a park, and so there were people at the park that we spent a lot of time with and moms, but
Yeah, I think you'll laugh at this, right? So I'm an introvert, right? Introvert. So our first 3 weeks of the lockdown, man, this is great, right? But eventually, like, this is ridiculous. I need to talk to someone, me, my wife and kids. Like, please, anyone.
now how old are your kids?
Well, they're all grown now.
Okay.
They're all grown.
Oh, wow, you had kids really young then.
Yeah.
Smarter than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another feminist myth, by the way. How do you have it all? Have kids really early.
Mhm.
Like, we've been told that it's better to have kids late in life, but it's not. Like, if you're having kids, right, when you're at the pinnacle of your leadership,
Yeah.
and about to make that step, and you do have to bow out to take your kid to T-ball, like, it hurts your career. And men don't make that sacrifice, right? They let the mom take the kid to
Yeah.
T-ball. And so there was a study done a couple years back, and the women who made it to the C-suite either didn't have kids or had kids very young. So don't be afraid to have kids young.
So I think your website, it says, we are on a mission to provide world-class experiences and to outperform the market by using diverse perspectives to remove blind spots, leading to better data and better execution.
Yeah.
Is that that's like your mission statement, the
Yeah.
vision?
Yeah. I mean, it's the reason we've had some amazing acquisition offers where I could have been wealthy and, not paid back my VC investors, but, generational wealth, right? Doesn't take much. Um, but for me, it was we have a $40 billion potential company, and these investors need to see women with these massive outcomes to get their head out of their ass. They need data points that say that women perform better and can grow bigger. And so it's kind of like I hold women accountable to what they're doing when they come off maternity leave. Like if you know you're going to stay home with your kids, don't wait to tell someone the day you come back from maternity leave. You're setting other women back. You are protected by your FMLA and you can give notice the day after you have a child if
Yeah.
you know you're staying home. Don't set women back. I feel, God help me, and it's ridiculous, but I feel some obligation to take this company to that level so that there are data points that investors look at.
From your point of view, how does your company succeed? Success being whatever definition you want to give it.
I am competitive. So success to me is winning. Like if you think about like the hard thing about hard things, we are in a winner take all market and we are currently number one in a winner take all market. And so if we're not one, two, or three in a winner take all market, then we haven't won. Um, and so yeah, success is market share and growth. Um,
So how do you know you're number one or number two or number three? There's something out there that has all the stuff.
I mean, right now we see it when we compete with people, right? Like there are, and we're defining the market our own way, of course. For us, it's this no code infrastructure. So there are lots of developer tools and observability tools for software engineers and coders. We want to own observability for the no code tech stack. And the largest portion of that by volume right now is revenue infrastructure. So there are people who are certainly beating us at being a great monitoring or testing tool at Salesforce, but we're the one who's winning across the market segments.
So how do y'all fail? Like, what has to happen? You say like, this ain't working. I got to shut it down.
So quitting, right? Like my daddy, the entrepreneur,
Mhm.
he's always like, just don't quit. So quitting would be a way we would fail, or recognizing where someone has a significant advantage that we don't have and not partnering with them soon enough. So I'm either going to win or I'm going to be part of the team that wins. And funding will be an outlier of that. And I mean, you quoted the statistics earlier,
Yeah.
right? Like that will be, it's funny. I tried to talk our CTO Sev into maybe taking the CEO helm. And he's like, no one would give me money over you. You're an incredible CEO. And he's not particularly nice. He's not saying it to suck up. I don't know that I agree with it, but and I was like, yeah, but like you're a technical dude with this incredible background and a CTO, like you're more fundable than I am. He's like, I don't accept that. But the truth is that I'm going to have to work harder and we're going to have to outperform to get that capital as an advantage to be able um, to be able to have capitalism.
When do you think you'll do another fundraise?
We have had 3 exceptional months of customer growth and pushing on this PLG thing.
Like,
So
tell me, I might be right about now.
yeah, I mean, we wanna have 6 months where we know we're gonna have at least a 4x or
Mhm.
5x revenue growth year, and all the KPIs are there.
Yeah.
So once it's there, because if not, it's a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
Like, our growth metrics have been 2x, and that's not enough.
Yeah. That'd be at least 3x, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and so we're gonna have a breakout year, and I'll raise once people are going to invest in us without my having to convince them to invest in us.
Yeah. That's always a better way to go. But unfortunately, a lot of founders have to raise because they've run out of money or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, or
Hey, I invested more in customer success than I did in sales.
yeah.
So that's why we have customers. And our customer success people bring everything right back to the product team and innovation. And investors told me I was wrong. I needed to have 2x the number of salespeople as customer success people.
Yeah. I think you did it the right way.
Yeah. Well, we're not every investor's cup of tea.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to them all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be at a place where it's Elizabeth Holmes, right? Like there were things she did where she's like, I'm not doing it that way. Invest or don't invest. And
Yeah.
I want to say, look, the metrics are here. We're going to invest in customer success, not cold sales reps. Invest or don't invest.
Yeah.
And I want the metrics to be so undeniable that they go, all right, that's fine. We'll invest anyways. We believe you.
Do you have like a dream customer?
Um, I mean, I have.
Do you?
Course.
Okay.
Yeah. Literally, the one customer I was telling you about that had an outage, he literally CC'd me on an email and said, to about one of our customer success people and said, "I wanted to let you know you set the bar, for what other companies should be doing in customer success." And so, like, our customers don't need to do that. It's
Yeah.
like, when you have a great experience at McDonald's, you
Mhm.
don't need to call and
Yeah.
say, the line guy's great. And so we have customers who do that. And when they don't like something about our product, they yell about it so we can fix it.
Okay.
Like Knack is an incredible one. We've launched this AI monitoring and testing feature, emailed the CEO, and he introduced us to their head of AI to be a design partner. Like it's really, really cool.
So I don't know if you're hiring now anytime soon, but when you hire people, what kind of characteristics do you look for? Like if someone like you're hiring for a role right now, what would some what kind of values they need characteristics and how will they reach out to find about the job?
So we focus. we're so small that we really are looking for people who will bottle wash, right? Like, you have to be an expert in your field and willing to hands-on do it at this moment. Um, I think we will be able to start to hire more specialized people in the future, but it's really someone who's willing to roll up their sleeves and take some initiative, and we do have some gotchas in our hiring
Mhm.
process that help us uncover that. Where, someone will take some initiative and reach back out when they haven't heard.
Yeah. So, any advice to any new startup founders out there, whether like they're just having an idea on the napkin or they're trying to raise money or anything like that?
So hard. The thing I always say is, like, don't look at the statistics, because if you look at the statistics, you'd never do it, right? Like, it's hard. Um, uh, I think the hardest knife edge to watch as a startup founder is being willing and open to hear all of the feedback you're getting, and then having the balls to disregard some of it when you disagree, and also having kind of the fortitude to ask the questions about where did that information come from, so you can tease it out if it's valuable for you. Because everyone wants to give you advice, and they're only gonna support you if you listen to their advice is the gotcha. So you have to listen to it and figure out what's valuable.
So, of course, they'll tell you focus on sales, focus on product, focus on different things. Obviously, you can't focus on everything at the same time. So, how do you decide on a day to day basis what you should focus on?
I'm not a good example, right? Like, the companies who have raised hundreds of millions of dollars focused on sales and not on products, right? They had, like, a single feature that they've generated $5 million of, and half of them were kind of bullshit deals where they sold to each other. So I'm not a good example of this, and that is what Silicon Valley wants to see you do, right? They want to see you growth at all costs, even if it's a little shady, even if it's a little side deal, whatever, right? And I'm someone who really felt strongly that we want to learn from our customers, and we want to build features that matter to our customers, and that we want to acquire the data points across all of them and come up with you know, the car
Mhm.
instead of the horse. Um, and it's just it's slowed down our ability to raise money and might have slowed down our ability to grow. So I think there's play the game a little better than I did would be my advice. But at the same time, focus on your customer. Like, focus on what they need, listen to them, and then again, use your decision making skills to figure out which one to prioritize.
So, as far as listening to your customers and doing the product, how did you prevent feature creep? Like something only one customer wanted?
Um, I would say that's something I'm pretty good at, right? Like, part of my extroverted nature is I do have a lot of conversations and I'm taking in a lot of data points. I am a voracious reader. So I think having a lot of data points to select from really let me see when something was an outlier. Um, and if they're a high paying enough customer, give them the fucking feature,
Mm.
right? Like, I think people are being sometimes can be too high handed about that. As long as it isn't taking 6 months of your development time away
Yeah.
from something else. If they want a 1-week sprint and they're gonna pay you 100 grand, give them their stupid feature, especially if you can build something else on the back of
Yeah.
that eventually. Like, it might take you someplace interesting.
What do you think makes a good developer?
I believe strongly that it should be more about development teams than developers. So I think having, and again, like my HR hat, I think having a well-rounded engineering team where you have people who are brilliant problem solvers and people who are like beasts at coding, people who are curious and maybe a little slower. Like, when you think about agile methodologies, they always talk about a high-performing team is more than the sum of the parts. That if you pull off a guy who's not delivering a bunch of story points or a bunch of lines of code, that you might destroy what's making that team unique and special. And so I think it makes a great team, and understanding where your team is today and what's the next person to increase their velocity is what makes a great developer. It's why I really like working with outsourced development shops on proof of concepts, and recommend them. The one I worked with is a company called USource, and they're incredible. they're offshore, so they're affordable and they start with design concepts and then move into production. So I think having design teams who can solve different disparate sets of problems and hiring for the for the next strength you need on that team.
So how do you pick them versus all the other hundreds of millions of outsourced software companies you could have went to? Were they referred to you or just that you did a lot of research?
They were referred to me and they have there's something pretty cool about the culture in the Philippines. And this particular company is a mixture of German and Dutch
Mhm.
engineers plus a Philippines team. And so you get this culture of excellence and focus and diligence, but also I think sometimes in some of the offshore teams, it can be very much about honoring the letter of the brief, but not the intention of the brief. And I think the Philippine Filipino culture is better at that than I think Indian cultures can be like, you said you wanted it brown, and so they make the font brown and the background brown, and they can be very literal, and then it's a change order. These guys seek to understand and deliver it. And so if you're someone who wants to micromanage engineering teams, it's better to have someone who will honor the brief and deliver it. This team will give you pushback on occasion and help you think through things you didn't think of.
Okay. And this your first startup that you did yourself?
This is my first time as a CEO, and I did not wanna be the CEO. I've tried to con, like, 6 other people into it, and they won't ever let me have it.
Yeah, you shouldn't give it up. So what are some things you love and or hate about being an entrepreneur?
Um, I am killing my husband. My husband literally is a director of risk management at a very stable, large Fortune 200 company, so he doesn't get it. Um, he supports me, but he thinks entrepreneurship is, like, the worst idea ever, so I hate that. I'm
So
absolutely
he's more like he supports you because you're married to him,
yeah.
not because of what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know that he really believes in me. I think he supports me, but
But like the MH, keep on doing your little hobby, have fun with it, You're
yeah,
not
yeah, 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 thank God the kids are cute and tall and getting good grades, right? Um, so that's challenging. Uh, that's hard, right? And then God, the worst part is, like, it's been a year, we had to lay off people that are exceptional and I believe in. And so I can't think of anything worse than that.
yeah, that sucks, no doubt.
And then the other thing for me that's really hard is I see people for what they're great at and what they can accomplish. And so I struggle to see people for who they are in this moment as opposed to like what they could be next week. Like I'm very future looking. Obviously, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur if I weren't that
Yeah.
person. And so holding people accountable to what they need to do, like the low ego story. Like, you lose people you love because you don't manage them in a way they need to be managed because I don't see them for where they are. I see them for who they could
Yeah.
be.
What's your advice on this, right? Because, like, of course, you got to do networking, right? But, like, some people, I think, spend too much time networking, not enough building the product. Other people spend too much building the product, not enough on marketing, so to speak. Like, what's a good, like, a linkage to do, so to speak? How do you balance that? You have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But if you go to any, in Seattle, you could easily go like one networking event every day, 365 a year,
Oh,
but
totally.
then you're not freaking building anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a CEO's job, right? Like my job is to be out there, to connect dots that my team doesn't see, to raise money, to make sure that they have paychecks. And if I'm not doing those 3 things, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. Um, so it's not doesn't feel fulfilling, it feels
Mhm.
silly, like I have to worry about, putting on makeup, like that actually matters, that I'm representing the company by how my appearance is feels frivolous, but it matters.
Um, so what's your like take on this? Like, how do you like? Well, first, maybe we'll go backtrack. How many hours of sleep do you get a day?
That is my other superpower, I don't need sleep.
You don't.
Yeah, so I'm really like a 4 to 6 hour maybe.
I have a friend like that. That dude only needs 4 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I could do like 5 hours, 3 or 4 days in a row, but then I start degrading. I need 7 hours. Yeah, I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah, it really is helpful, right? Like in crunch times, I can be the one who's rational and still
And now
present.
is it because you make yourself only sleep 4 hours or just natural?
Oh, no, 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 just totally natural. Yeah.
Okay.
If I go to sleep real early, I'll wake up at like 3:30, 4 in
You
the
just wake up
morning. Yeah,
automatically.
yeah,
Our friends like that. Like if you go sleep at 10 p.m., he wakes up at 2 a.m.
yeah,
Goes to sleep 3 a.m., he wakes up
yeah.
7 a.m.
And if I get real stressed, it goes down. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't possibly get an extra hour
Mhm.
of sleep if I wanted to. Like I just can't. It's weird.
So you're naturally outworking everyone just by science and genetics.
Yeah, it's not fair, right?
Yeah.
Like that is totally fair. I couldn't, no one else. Um,
But hey, you got to work with the advantage you're given to, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm sure you have disadvantages you have to work with now. I mean, you have an advantage.
Yeah, I'm total pain in the ass too. So, they have to deal with that as well. I'll write a lot of good content. I'll meet a lot of people. I'll get a lot done, but they have to deal with me being a pain in the ass.
And so how do you deal with like, like you only sleep 4 hours a day? Like how do you deal with, okay, I'm up all the time, I'm working. Oh shit. I have this great idea. Let me email it. Oh, it's 10 p.m. I can't email it
Oh
right.
my gosh. The first time I saw it was from Gabriella Schuster, who used to run partners at Microsoft and is just, gosh, I wouldn't call her a mentor. I wouldn't dare to call her a mentor, but she's someone I certainly look up to. She was the first person I saw who had in their footer that said, I work the hours that work for me.
Mhm.
So please don't feel like you need to respond
Yeah.
based on the hours you choose to work.
Yeah.
Because it used to be I would use the scheduling function in Gmail and Slack
Mhm.
to schedule. I would take longer to do my work to not make someone feel like they needed to work the hours I
Yeah.
was working. And I resent that. Like I resent that I
Yeah.
was made to feel like I need to hide the fact that I'm passionate about what I'm doing.
Yeah. And part of that's culture you build too. If you have a good culture, they're going to know not to respond at an email. Or actually, what I tell my people is like, hey, I'm on all the time. Set up your notifications, not to be notified at certain times. So that
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Like don't make it harder for me because you're not up.
yeah.
And it's fine. Like I don't expect you to have your phone on. Like
Mhm.
that company we took public, I got chewed out because at 2 in the morning he was out with an investor and had a question for me
Mhm.
and I didn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, you sleep with your BlackBerry under your pillow."
Yeah.
Like that is not our culture.
No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so like I then don't want to have to hide the fact that I'm really excited about the AI product we're launching and putting in a bunch of hours because I'm excited about it.
Talk about that some more. Your AI product coming up.
So our product, well, okay. So the problem we're trying to solve is McKinsey just released research that said 83% of enterprises that are deploying AI are deploying third-party AI, right? Deploying ChatGPT or Bard. They're not hiring data scientists and building their own LLM, right? Which means that it isn't about how good the LLM is. It's all of the context. Like in Latin, it's in situ, right? Like it's the data they're getting, the conversation they're having, the chat bot that they're communicating against. It's the LLM in situ. And that's the problem we're solving. It's kind of that last mile for these third-party LLMs. We can help people select which one works best for their context, right? The National Republican Committee should probably go with a different third-party LLM than the DNC should. There is context and there should be context and it should be specific to your company and your brand. And so we can help them do an objective measure of which LLM works best for them against their source of truth. And then we can monitor it to make sure it continues to work in situ, in context of all the other things that they have.
So how would you do product market fit for that?
Who knows? We are literally through like our fifth beta at this
Okay.
point, or
Okay.
onboarding our fifth beta.
Okay.
So we already had incredible integrations with chat providers. So Intercom, we have an integration with Drift as a customer, and we have an integration with their chat. So our technology can have a conversation with that technology, which is really critical to be able to see how it's performing in situation.
And you doing the AI thing, so to speak, because customers asked for it, or because you did a roadmap and said, okay, we need it.
No, our customers ask for it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, "We're launching a generative AI chat bot. How do we test it?"
Okay. Talk about how y'all do your product roadmap.
You're assuming I do a product
I'm
roadmap.
sure you do. I'm 99.5% you do.
We don't have a proper roadmap. We have, and it's Sev really owns it. We have a very tight vision of where our product is, which is monitoring and observability. Testing is a huge function of that, synthetic data. So we look at what falls into that, and then we have, um, a pretty rigorous backlog process. And then we have a customer advisory board that
Okay.
provides us feedback on what they want to
Okay.
see
And how often you like make changes to the roadmap? Like
weekly.
weekly? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. The prioritization changes all the time.
Okay. So let's say you wake up tomorrow, you go to work, and you have a priority list of 1 to 100, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure you work on priority number 1 or 3 versus number 79?
We are an agile shop and we really focus on focus. Like, what's the one thing we're going to get done first? And then what's the next thing you do? And if it's blocked, then put it in the blocked column, move on to number two. Finish number two. Is number three unblocked? I mean, is number one unblocked? Great. Start on number one, not unblocked. Either spend time unblocking it
Yeah.
or move to number three. So it's a very, um, marketers don't love me because marketers don't like to work that way.
Yeah.
And we've definitely had marketing people on the team who think I'm ridiculous, but I think it's the right way to work.
That's called, I think, an agile something method,
Yeah.
or like 2 week, like based like 2 week sprints.
Yep.
Is that method really as good as like developers and people make it out to be?
So it is a forced structure to help you maintain discipline. Like you've met me, I'm all over the place, right? And so like I would if I don't have that structure where someone says, "Okay, this is number 1, do you still want it to be number 1? Or should number 3 be number 2? What's next?" If I'm not looking them and having to stack rank
Mhm.
them, then I'm gonna run people around in circles and nothing's gonna get done.
So what happens if you start your 2 week sprint, we'll say on April 1st, and April 14th, half the stuff ain't done. You just like push it out to the next cycle, or you're like, man, we might have been too over eager, we had too much stuff on the plate.
Yeah, I mean, there's ceremonies for that, and that's why I think the methodology is interesting, right? So you have a retrospective. Why didn't we get this done? Okay, well, we took on too much. It was impossible from the get-go. Or we took on projects that weren't well enough defined, and so we spent all our time defining them instead of doing them. So you get the ability to figure out what went wrong last sprint, iterate, and make it better next sprint.
Can someone be a good tech person without being like a really good detailed person?
I think I'm not a good detail person. I would not describe myself like events. I miss incredibly important details all
Okay.
the time doing events management. Um, I think you have to be self-aware, right?
Okay.
Like where are your limitations and playing to your strengths and making sure that someone is catching those details that you can't catch, I think is
Mhm.
important. But yeah, I think it's diversity, right?
Mhm.
Companies are better for having people who can see
Yeah.
trends but not details.
Here's one for you. So we'll just say based on like economics, right? Suppose there's like one group of economic people, right? They have all the money, all the jobs, they're like the CEOs, CTOs of companies, right? And they do these events, right? Is it a responsibility to reach down to the lower economics and bring them up? Or is it a responsibility of the lower economic demographics to find these opportunities and go over there?
Yes.
For both of them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna wait on someone else to lift up women,
Mhm.
right? And I'll
Especially you have to do with like, go to Eventbrite or meet up. Of course, that's saying that they know how to do that stuff.
I mean, but you have to care,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can't make someone care, and
Like,
if
you're
you
not gonna go to someone's house and knock on the door.
yeah. But, I mean, it's out there and it's easy to find, and, every public I really love public libraries, by the way. Every
They're
public
the
library,
greatest thing ever. Still
especially here
are.
in Seattle, we do them so good. But there's a computer at every public library. Like, there is access if you want it. You have to want it. I do think one of the guys who ran the business builders program at Salesforce, he always talked about people not being able to dream what they can't see. Um, and so I think that's important. Again, like you need to see women out there running tech
Yeah.
companies so you can think it's possible or even a good idea or dream it. But I think you have to like put yourself in a position of working for it and seeking it out.
So how do we solve this, right? Um, so let's suppose that I'll put this. So suppose someone's in Seattle, right? They live in like a kind of disadvantaged neighborhood, right?
Mhm.
But you're still in Seattle, right? You still have access to all this stuff, all the internet, the tech, the people. But and then there's someone who lives in like lack of a better neighborhood town, Farmville, Arkansas, with 50 people. This person really wants to get into tech, but there's like nothing there, right? Of course, there's like the internet, the Zoom, like
You
the
like picking on Arkansas, don't you?
yeah,
All right, Tallahassee, Florida, right?
Cali has support, yeah.
Yeah, like the most successful people in town are the people whose parents founded, not all the way, but some of the most respected, amazing families in town are the people who founded the plumbing and electrical
Mhm.
companies, right? And so that's what you look up to. The idea of getting into software is nowhere in your mind.
Okay.
Um, so I think that is an exposure problem, right? In Tallahassee, for instance, the Florida State Seminole 100, we were the fastest growing software company on the list, even though there were 22 companies ahead of us. Um, it's not just about like, I think it's okay to say that people don't want the same things and don't have access and they're coming from different perspectives. When they're being actively held back by situations, that's where I think we are obligated to go in and kick down doors.
Okay.
And so like people growing up um in Tallahassee, there was a bunch of excuse me, in Atlanta, some Section 8 housing. That was an incredibly long strip. It was all zoned for the same school. People had never seen anything outside of it. They never had a neighbor who was successful. The people who were successful still lived in that neighborhood and sold drugs. And so that's a situation where there's something systemically wrong that we need to go in and kick down doors and fix problems. Um, and I think there's a little bit of that happening in venture capital for female and minority founders, by the way. There is something really systemically wrong where data wise, it is a good decision to not invest in a woman unless you're holding her to a higher bar because the best marker of success is her raising an A round. And there's a higher bar for her to raise a round. And so I think being really aware of it and calling it out and having those conversations, but we need to get past that, right? Like, so the people who are doing the A rounds and the C rounds and the go publics, we need to get there. I was watching, gosh, Jennifer Tejada, who's the CEO of PagerDuty, which is a DevOps tool. She's absolutely badass. They've continued to outperform the market. And I watched her doing the same thing I do when she was talking on Squawk a couple months ago.
Yeah.
She was like, "Look, I'm not going to walk around and pretend like I think the market's improving." She's like, "Our guidance is based on what I believe the market's gonna do. I'm not gonna run out there and give you guidance based on a best case scenario like all of these other people." Well, everyone else is. Give them guidance based on the like, it's a female risk reaction, even for like one of the coolest, best CEOs out there who's publicly traded. So I don't know. I think there's a let's kick down the systemic bias and let's break down doors and we need to reach down and do that. But otherwise, I think people need to lift themselves.
So all these stats out there on a fundraising, right? All these, you might not know this, all these stats that's based on pre-seed, A round, or is it like from pre-seed all the way to D round and they're all combined?
So it's all combined.
Okay.
PitchBook and Carta both have come out. Actually, Carta just did a really cool release talking about the stats of what's the average round size and valuation from everyone who's using Carta. So that
Okay.
was a really cool piece of data I point people to on like what's the round size. But PitchBook is the one that consistently finds the data about um, female founders, all female founding teams with a female founder, which tends to be the head of HR or marketing. Um, and so that's where I go for the statistics on
And does
the.
it break it down like, I'll make this up, like only 2% of females raise a C round, only 0.5% raise a D round.
Oh yeah, they
It
break it
gets,
down all the way.
I'm guessing it's tougher the bigger the round is. Females and
Well,
minorities.
that's what happened. You were talking about the minority rounds. There just weren't the outlier rounds that were skewing
Okay.
it up. And
Okay.
so when an outlier round doesn't happen, like one investor goes public or, one founder raises a massive E round, that's when the stats fall off the way that
Okay.
I can't remember if it was minority or black founders, but
Okay.
um, which should never be the case, right?
Yeah.
Like our hitting 2% versus 3% should not be dependent on one deal. Like that's a systemic problem.
Yeah. You would think not, but unfortunately, yeah. So you already talked about your company some, but can you once again like go in detail how it got started, what you're focused on now, what your big dream vision is for this?
Yeah, yeah. So the company really started as a way to automate what we were doing manually. We were going to a website, filling out a form, creating a table in Excel and saying, all right, I filled out the form with this fake email address, with this name, because this is someone who is an existing customer. They're already in the database. So I'm going to create them in the database and then fill out the form with that name. And so it'll be an existing database customer. It's a contact or it's a lead or it's a customer or they have a partner attached to it. So we would create all the scenarios on an Excel spreadsheet and then we'd fill out the forms 1,000 times and then we'd check to see, are they making it to a salesperson? So that was kind of rev one of how we were testing it manually. And we'd do a stopwatch. So I fill out the form on the website. How long does it take before it makes it into a CRM? And so we track it. And that was how we tracked latency. I didn't know it was called latency. I didn't know there was a thing called DevOps. I had never heard of Selenium harnesses. And so we just continued to start to automate it and use the developer tools. And when we commercialized it, it was really putting a UI and creating some bespoke developer tools to help us test. Essentially, it's behavioral driven testing, right? Like what's the customer's behavior and how can you test it?
And what's the focus right now? Like get more customers.
It is figuring out how do we go to market and become ubiquitous, right? So it's more customers and users. It is easier to understand features where people can onboard themselves more easily. We're still very much going to be in a place where we make money by enterprise. Um, but it's critical that when a demand gen marketer wants to use our product or when an analyst wants to use our product, it's really easy. And so making it easy for them is the same thing as a PLG motion.
I just think you said earlier goals like get a certain market share.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm watching our competitors, like Y Combinator just did their first release in like 6 years saying that they're looking for solutions, for specific problems, and this is one of the problems they identified.
Okay.
Yeah, so they feel like there's a big gap in the market that clearly we're not filling fast enough, so I wanna go take the market before some YC startup can grab it. Um, and I'm not really worried about it. The product was really hard, and it's taken a lot of learning to get it where it is, and I don't think someone can grab that
Yeah.
externally and certainly can't catch us at the speed at which we're innovating. Um, but yeah, it's really about solving problems better, faster for more customers as opposed to growing revenue. And so the revenue will follow someday, and when the revenue follows, then we'll go get investors because I don't want to have to explain to investors why our user growth is exceptional, our product is exceptional, but our revenue growth is too slow.
Yeah. So including you have 9 people at your company, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you ever do like any offsites where you bring everyone to one location for a week, anything like that? Or
We have, and my son came and walked around. We went to McMenamins, and there were signs everywhere that said to Stack Moxie. And he goes, I bet this is what Jeff Bezos' kids feel like. Um,
that's funny.
we are very, very, like every dollar we have, we really want to hire additional engineers at
Mhm.
this point. So we're just spending every dollar on building up to be able to do that.
So obviously, I have a remote first team, but I believe in remote work. I love it, but I'm a firm believer everyone can't do remote work.
Yeah.
How do you make sure people can do remote work, like before you hire them, if that's possible, right?
Yeah. So our hiring process definitely looks at that. And to be clear, we do, that's why we've created an office in Tallahassee that we intend to be in office. Madison McDonald is an incredible recent Florida State graduate, um, Floridian, family's Cuban. Like she's just everything we want to build in our culture. And so we hired her there in Tallahassee. And as we're growing customer success and sales teams, they'll be physically there in the office so they can learn from each other. So our thought is if more than 30% of your job is either learning or teaching, you're going to need to be code.
Yeah. I think the stat are too, like, remote work is the worst thing possible for, like, junior people or people new to the job.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are people who are junior or new to their job and are in such a repeatable environment that they're button pushing. And it takes their intellect, but like it is very defined
Yeah.
and so I think it's different. And I think AI is going to take those jobs, right? But this one is, I want them in a room together so that when someone says, "Oh gosh, you're using OneTrust and someone migrated to Webflow website and now you're having problem with your compliance not functioning right." Someone else in the room to go, "Oh man, I was just talking to the guys at Malwarebytes. They had the same problem. Let me come in and show you how we solved it." And so I want that kind of osmosis,
Mm.
organic
Yeah.
learning, and I think it's gonna be great for onboarding people. And then they can move to remote jobs or they can stay and be collaborative.
So, what are some things that excite you about AI? Some things that scare the shit out of you about AI?
I don't think I have enough sense to be as scared as I should be. Like, I can definitely, I've seen the Terminator, right? So, like, in theory, is AI gonna learn and teach itself and work around us? Or what is the one? The Mitchells versus the machines? I love that. Um, so I mean, I can see it, and I can see how it would get there, but I've not seen anything like all the people who say they're coding, like writing full code with AI. It's just I don't think we're there.
Yeah. Like, what's the joke? When AI does a takeover, we know that we can all thank Sam Altman for pushing the button to get us down the road.
Yeah, seriously. Like I yeah. Maybe so I'm really excited about um never having to write another haiku. Like that's awesome. I love if you've used the app, I'm working on like just a personal project
Uh-huh.
with my daddy. He's got a farmhouse
Uh-huh.
that I'm working on some renovations in a blog about this weird little part of Florida. And being able to have a conversation with AI to
Mhm.
capture it so that when I get back to my computer and I'm writing
Okay.
is really, really valuable. Um, so I think that's super cool. Uh, yeah, and just the mind-numbing work going away, which I was never good at anyway.
Yeah. And so, is your product only in the United States right now?
No, almost 20% of our customers are in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, GDPR is a big thing we help with because it
Yeah.
takes a ton of scenario testing
Mhm.
that's pretty manual without us. So Europe makes a lot of sense.
Nice, nice. So, do you plan on expanding more in the United States first or Europe, or just whatever you can?
We are focused on technology partners.
Okay.
So we're following Salesforce,
Mhm.
HubSpot, Adobe, um, like
Mhm.
those tools go to market. So since they tend to be pretty global, we're pretty location agnostic.
Okay. So, so you have small companies using your product now at a free tier. Like, how big do you have to get before you start charging them? Because not is it like certain revenue thing, certain size?
Yeah, it's complexity. So like one of our amazing customers is a company called Sendoso. They're not one of our biggest customers by revenue, but they get in and use all of our new features and figure it out. But because they're A, really well architected, and B, have like a really great marketing ops leader, they don't need to test everything all the time. They
Yeah.
have a really good release process. They have a structured testing methodology. And so they're not running thousands of tests because their things are
Mhm.
breaking. A lot of times you're running a lot of tests because stuff's
Yeah.
breaking. And they're also not willy-nilly launching a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So it's a structured rollout, things are launching, then they go into regular testing. And so they just don't need to pay us a lot of money. Like it's free $99, $500,
Okay.
and then $2,000 a month. So like we really do have low pricing tiers.
So, like, all the stuff y'all do, is it, like, stored on the cloud somewhere, personal server, GitHub? Like, where's all the stuff at?
Yeah, so we have an open source integration platform, which is one of the reasons that we've been able to scale so
Mhm.
quickly. So people can build their own integrations into our platform and then test against
Okay.
them, and that's in GitLab, GitHub, excuse
Mhm.
me. We use different features. We are multi-cloud, but we're primarily Azure right now. And then uh, most of the time, we're just storing scenario data.
Mhm.
So like I ran a test, did it pass or
Okay.
fail? We're not storing data about their business. It's just about the testing.
Any particular reason why you went Microsoft or just
Yeah, they supported us in an amazing way.
okay.
So obviously I had come from Microsoft.
Okay.
I worked with the Azure team
Okay.
as well.
Makes sense.
And so they had amazing programs and they've supported us just hands down. I also really like the Azure platform has billing that allows us to have international customers.
Okay. So the big three are like what Microsoft, Azure, Google, I think Cloud, AWS. I think there's Rackspace down in Austin, Sans Oracle. Are these clouds all based on the same thing, or is there really like differences?
There are differences.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So the different levels of security they provide. So like different systems will have different levels of security native to their offerings. They have different access and native integrations to the different products that they're working across. Like I think Lambda is one at AWS that's just everyone needs to use. And there's not something really comparable. I don't know. I'm talking about my not an engineer clearly. But so there are different features that make some technology better for other things. AWS, I believe, is still the cheapest per um, storage credit. But for us with enterprises, we've been able to lean on those partners to be able to get our SOC 2 really quickly.
So would you consider yourself a tech founder or a non-tech founder, or just a founder? Period.
I mean, okay, so in reality, I don't think I'm a tech founder, right? I think I'm a business leader. But when I look at dudes who are tech founders, who are considered to be tech founders, like they are so far less technical than I am that I don't know that I'm shortchanging myself,
Yeah,
right?
I think you might be just a little bit.
Yeah, like so I don't know. Yeah, I would call myself a technical product owner.
Mhm.
I am not an engineer, so it just depends on where someone's drawing the line. But yeah, like my first co-founder, technical co-founder was like people would try and like trip me up on tech. And then I would go deep and then they'd be like, "Oh, shut up." Like I think it's something that happens to women that doesn't happen to men.
Yeah. So like you on the tech side, you get so deep where like you review code on the GitHub or anything like that, or you say that's not my lane. CTO, you take care of that.
Well, I mean, I definitely hired exceptional people and I want them to be able to talk about the things they're exceptional at. So I am thrilled if I go into a meeting with my people and I don't have to speak once.
Yeah.
Um, like I've really done a great job. I really talk like we had a meeting with Florida State University today to work with them,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Like they really support their people and like all the way through the
Yeah.
ecosystem. Um, and I had to talk a lot because what we're doing is something that's not just a straightforward example. And so I realized that we needed some better training when we bring in our sales on that so that I don't have to talk so much.
You
But like
bring
our straightforward examples, like I don't add value.
you bring a good point. Why is it so many people they do a great job of hiring great people, but then they'll like they won't shut up, they'll micromanage them, they get in the way. Like you've hired great people, they can do the job. Like get the fuck out of the way. Why do so many people have a problem with that, you think?
I think it's insecurity. I actually, if you hear stories about Steve Jobs, Bezos, and Gates, right? All three of them were kind of famous for going deep when there was a problem on something that was critical. And people can talk about different ways in which that were micromanaging, but they weren't doing that with everything. And my guess is had they come in there and everything, the metrics were right and things were looking great, they would have never gone deep. And so I think that's the kind of leader I want to be. I want to be someone who can be like, hands off, you've got it. But I'm doing enough checking and enough looking at the metrics where when something feels like it's going off the rails, I still have enough knowledge where I can go deep and I can get my head around it. And I have a team that will respect my trying to solve a problem when it's critical to the organization.
So I remember watching an interview with Elon Musk one time. And he was talking about all the brain power use. He said, 'cause he said, you have to understand if it's a small problem, I got people for that. If it gets to me, like it's a big problem, I use a lot of brain power. So how big of a problem does something have to be for someone to send it your way?
We are pretty all hands on deck right now, right? Like, I'm in there identifying points on the Google Analytics that need to be
Okay.
brought up to the dashboard
Yeah.
right now. And we were not as successful when I backed off that level.
Okay.
But I think it's because I never got reporting in our analysis in a place where the level of diligence and quality I wanted it to be was visible to me. So people were still having to touch it and making judgment calls on
Yeah.
things that might not have aligned, which is my fault, right? Like I need to be in there and making sure the reporting is where it need to be so we can suss out the places that need my help. Um, but yeah, I could care less about the state registration getting filed 3 days later. Like it just we'll pay a penalty and it'll be $15. It's not like any investor who's harking on you about stuff like that, they're harking on you on the wrong thing, right? Like when you have money and funding, you can always fix those things and you should care. It's the right thing to
Yeah.
do. But if it's the decision between talking to a customer to get your engineering team working on the right feature or closing a sale with a customer or making sure your state registrations are perfect, like fuck off.
That's how you do this. Like you talked earlier about having high standards, which I think is great. So let's suppose you have a person that's worked for you. They've always performed your high standards. Well, this period, like 2 or 3 periods, like they're not really performing. Like, how do you go about, hey Jason, you're like, Jason, what the fuck you doing? Either get back to prior performance, you're fired, or like do you train them up or just have a talk with them? Like, how do you do that?
That's where I'm bad, right? Like when someone's been exceptional and I have totally handed off things to them and they've done a better job than I could ever do myself. Um, I I struggle with how to come back in, right? Like I am best when someone is hard on me from a metrics perspective. When someone's like, "Hey, your growth needs to be 5x," right? Like this is a hard bar. Why aren't you hitting it? As opposed to why did you choose to hire an extra customer success person as opposed to one SDR, right? Like I really am best when you give me accountability and ownership. And so I've treated my people that way. And I burnt the hell out of the best salesperson ever. And he did his best to be in there um and make it through. Like again, we would not have a company without his ability to sell and the things he's taught me. But um I didn't realize that when he was too burnt out to continue, and I didn't help him enough, and when I did try and help, I micromanaged instead of helping him through it. So I think that's something that I've definitely learned through that the metrics need to be there so it's easy to see when someone's slipping, but is still all in. Um, and having breaks and figuring out what motivates people and how to make them successful. I'm hell bent on doing better.
When should a founder or CEO bring on a salesperson?
I think it depends on the founder and the CEO. I think if you're the model of the VC, like the charismatic dude seller who, doesn't mind skirting the truth a little bit
Mhm.
and will sell ice to Eskimos, then you should be the seller. You should be the seller until you can afford it, right? Like that's the thing you're doing. When you're me and I'm a product person, and, I wanna see them use the product and I give it away for free, and
Mhm.
my inclination is to see them get in with the product and then upsell them on value. Probably need to have someone in there who's a better salesperson than you are. So I
Yeah.
think it's play to your strengths.
Okay.
Sales damn well better be early though,
Yeah.
and unless you're, oh gosh, what was her name? Michelle at Usermind.
Oh, no, no, finish talking about. Yeah.
She's so freaking neat, so brilliant, and she could raise money like nobody's
Mhm.
business, right? You have a window where
Yeah.
you can go out there and do product feedback for a really long time. And maybe sales isn't the best investment. But sales is a really good barometer of need. So I don't think you can have a product organization without having big barriers for the customer to overcome. Um, and a lot of times that's sales.
Okay. From your point of view, what's something the CEO should never give up? Like this thing, the CEO should always do that, no matter how big the company is, no matter what's going on. This is one thing the CEO should never give up.
Oh, I don't think there is one thing. Again, I think it's their thing. I think you should always be hands-on enough to know the business.
Okay.
Um, but I don't think I I don't I think there's maybe I don't know what's the one thing you've heard? What have people answered,
Um,
or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, some people will say sales, some people like social media, some people just,
You should always talk to the customer. There should never be a CEO who isn't occasionally taking customer success calls or on sales calls and is talking to your customers. The second you're distracted from that, then you should.
and then, so when you raise this next round, how do you go about figuring out the salaries for you and your founders
Um,
or lack of salary for
yeah.
your founders?
So one of our leaders is an incredible training and culture leader at the company. She's not full time, but she's amazing. So she will own that. And we have a guideline. So we're looking at 80% of salaries, based on there's a Anderson, but there's a Silicon Valley report that shows what the salaries are for people at stages in revenue. So we want to know what 80% is. And we want to target that for salary, cash compensation. And then we want to have world-class benefits. So even now with a small team, even as tight as we are on cash, we have health insurance. So we want to have world-class benefits. So our employees and our partners and the people we're working with every day can show up to work and focus on work and not have to worry about like, if I'm sick, can I afford to go to a doctor?
Okay. So is there anything I should ask you that I haven't or anything else you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I want to know more about you. I feel like I've talked about myself this whole time. Okay, what's the accent?
Texas.
Is it really?
Yeah.
You have almost
Yeah.
the New Orleans accent.
Everyone says that. Everyone says, everyone gets Louisiana.
Okay, I
But
like it.
yeah, thanks.
Very cool. We're in Texas.
So I was born in a town called Kerrville by San Antonio, like same town Janet Manziel came from,
Yeah.
and then lived in the San Antonio area to the seventh grade. Seventh grade, moved to Odessa, Texas.
You know, one of our very cool investors is down there. So I'll have to introduce you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Can you give us your social media? Some people reach out to you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and DM me on Twitter. So I'm at MHHANLEY. That's my maiden name on Twitter. So you can get me there, or X, I'm sorry. And then on LinkedIn, I am linkedin.com/n/mhlines. And I'll respond. Anyone who needs help, please reach out. Like people have been really gracious.
And so you give us a lot of great value and stuff, but now can you give us any last minute wisdom or advice or anything you want to talk about?
Oh gosh. My daddy always says nothing happens until someone sells something. Like that's the whole point of the company. Nothing happens until someone sells something. So for all the sales leader out there who might have broken systems, I want them to feel free to reach out too. I'll help them make sure that they can sell something.
MH, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. And remember to be great every day.